across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. We're live across the UK. As ever, Talk Drive for Wednesday. Thank you to Ian Collins, off to see my wife, no doubt, before he goes home to his own. Listen, so much to talk about today on the show. We start with that big news. Trans women are not legally a woman. The Supreme Court has announced the definition of a woman is based on biological sex. It's a landmark judgment made today. Trans activists, as I said to Ian, allies have called it an evil decision, attacking minority groups and putting them at risk and setting the community of life back 20 years. Other people are saying it makes sense. A woman can't have a penis. There are two sexes. You remember the inauguration speech from Donald Trump? It was all about two genders, two sexes. It'll be very interesting to see how this resonates and how people who, I mean, Nicola Sturgeon, right? I mean, Keir Starmer. I was in the studio when Piers Morgan asked him and he couldn't answer it. Emma Watson, all those ones from Harry Potter. A woman can have a penis. The Supreme Court says a woman cannot have a penis. Lord Hodge said that the 5 Supreme Court justices had unanimously decided that the terms women and sex in the Equality Act refer to a biological woman and biological sex. We would say here at Talk, it is a resounding result and a resounding yes to common sense, which seems to be in no abundance whatsoever. Love to know your thoughts straight away. 0344 499 1000. Talk, you can get us on text as well, 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Voice notes, always welcome to Ryan here in all his glory, 0344 499 1000. But a woman is a woman, biologically, say the Supreme Court. What do you make of that? Let me know. Migrants. I didn't know this. I mean, the sun comes out. Biggest day for migrants yesterday. 705 more entering the UK. Highest number we've seen in a single day this year, making a mockery of this government who came to power saying we're going to smash the gangs, we're going to sort this out. I don't think anybody's got an answer because nobody seems to be getting anywhere. What do you make of it? We talk about it incessantly on this show. You know, we're giving money to France. They don't seem to do anything. There's just a constant stream of people coming in. The do-gooders say, well, these people are coming from war-torn countries. You know what I think. They're not. They're coming from a beach in France because we lay out the red carpet and make sure we treat them better. And David, who texted Ian and said, I'm getting as angry as Jezza. I'm determined today not to get angry. OK, I'm just going to be calm. Also, I was looking at the kids through the glass yesterday, if you remember, all the lovely people who work on the show. They're all about 20-something kids to me. They're probably older than my kids. And actually, I was talking about the winter of discontent when the last Labour Party was in power and how there were you know, it was rubbish all over the streets. And this whole argument and debate has started because of what's happening in Birmingham. You'll know about the rubbish situation. Unite Union is now saying that could spread across the country. I genuinely believe there will be a summer of discontent. I'm in the car on the way to the station today, actually, with Alice and Henry. One's 16, one's 21, right? And I'm telling them about the winter of discontent, and they look at me like I've landed from Mars. And then I tell them the same thing will happen. Because if you are a Labour government, you offer the unions a deal to get into power. And when you get into power, you've offered them something that you can't afford. And yet if you then don't do what you say you're going to do, they go on strike. That is it. It is as simple as that. For me, that is a major, major consideration for many people. How do you deal with that? How are we going to deal with it? I mean, we had to in 1979. There'll be a shortage of electricity and blackouts. There'll be rubbish on the streets. The NHS, the ambulance work, fire, the whole thing is going to be an absolute disaster. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And the other big story today, the UK's largest teaching union has called Reform UK far-right and fascist, and its leader has dismissed Nigel Farage as a pound shop Donald Trump. I would have respectfully thought that the National Education Union should concentrate on improving the services they provide to our children. I'm really strong on this, probably because I've had so many kids, but I believe that education is about preparing a child for life, getting them through the exams, but so much more. But what we have now as we have in so many aspects in life, I think, in this country, is an ideology being pushed upon kids by teachers. It's not for teachers to be political. And if Nigel Farage ends up as the Prime Minister or loses his seat in Clacton, that has nothing to do with the education of your children. Why is it that the teaching unions are not talking about some of the things that we talk about on this station, which are going on, which are utterly ludicrous, like mass immigration, like a public service that it's on its backside because it's being used by people who didn't pay into it? Why are they not teaching kids that there's crime on the streets? Because we've got politicians that won't do anything about it. We've got a justice system that is soft on the perpetrators of crime and does do very little for the victim. That's what I'd be teaching kids, the reality of life. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222 and voice notes on the same number. Are Jodie primed and ready to go? Ryan always primed and ready to go. Amy smiling. Oh, and we've got Cystitis. He's in today on the buttons. I'm joking. He's called Titus. It's just my hearing's going. And the other day when they said Titus, I thought they said Cystitis. We say a very good afternoon to the newly betrothed, and apparently he's been ill, but he's better now. James Price, former government special advisor. Hello.
How are you, sir? You well? You said you're not going to get angry this week, so I'll get angry for you.
Oh, mate, I've just done Plank of the Week. I've done all my anger. It's all gone out. Are you all right? You were ill.
No, I was abroad with work, so I didn't trust the internet signal in foreign climes.
There's a lot not to trust. Let's start with this landmark decision by the Supreme Court. Many people here, including myself, would say it's common sense. Trans women are not legally women. Definition of a woman relates to biological sex. Landmark decision by the Supreme Court. Common bleeding sense, and yet activists and allies have called it evil and said that it's put back the community of life 20 years, James Price. Your thoughts, please?
Let's go a bit further back. No, I mean, on one level, as you say, this is a great victory for common sense. And after so many horrible news stories coming out of the UK for so long, and so many different areas, whether it's our economy, whether it's the fraying social fabric, or the hatred of our culture by the elites, or you name it, you got it. This is a remarkable good news story. And yet, of course, it therefore highlights just how far we've fallen. Yep. We have this Supreme Court, which people will remember was a kind of weird, pointless Tony Blair vanity project to make us seemingly more like the Americans, because vibes, nothing more than that really, where the old system worked perfectly well. So the Supreme Court shouldn't really exist anyway. But the fact that it had to go to something like a Supreme Court in order to say that the law of the land was that a woman is a woman, I mean, we were promised that we'd have flying cars by now in 2025, and instead we're arguing about the thing that you teach a child before you teach them almost anything else. It's kind of ludicrous at this point, isn't it?
It frightens me, actually, as a parent. There are two examples that I've talked about before on the show. Was the midwife who came on some time ago, and she'd been a midwife for 29 years, and distraught. She delivered a baby. She turned to the parents and said, congratulations, you've got a healthy baby boy. They took offence. It's up to us to decide the sex of our baby. Wrote a letter and she got a written warning, and she'd done it for 29 years, and so mortified was she that she decided to leave the service, a woman with great skill. I probably have a different view, right? I don't care what you are, but I worry about the crap that is being pushed upon, actually talking about education, on our kids, and just there's no sense. I tell that story, Ryan is doing it again, when I took Ava to Brighton College, I mean, two furries walked past. I mean, if a kid of mine did that, I can categorically tell you that I would put a cat litter tray outside the back door. You think I'm joking? You can go and live like a bleeding cat, sleep under a car. I'm not bothered. But I tell you, I went to the toilets at Brighton University and it said anybody's welcome. And what really gets me as a father of a teenage daughter, and this is me being dreadfully serious, is that all the people who talk about women's rights, quite rightly, by the way, I've been a big advocate of that, I don't hear them saying anything when I say, if my teenage daughter goes into a female toilet and there's a bloke in a skirt with a penis, I consider that a threat to her. And they don't say a word because they consider that you're being really disrespectful. I'm not being disrespectful to trans people, but the truth of the matter is this. There's men and there's women. Now, whatever happens to certain people, there is not a woman with a penis. It is a fact. It is now official. Done. Finito. Gone. That's it.
Right. Yeah, well, quite right. You would hope that that the people who genuinely suffer from the kind of body dysmorphia that lends people to think that they're born with the wrong sex, that they would also welcome this ruling, really, because you now hopefully will start to shut the door on exactly as you say, all these sorts of issues where predators were using this kind of big brouhaha. You've got the example very often in Scotland, actually, of people who are quite obviously blokes wearing wigs. I think there's one particular example, and I won't be too graphic because it's a family show.
Is this Isla Bryson?
And that's the one, you got it.
So this is, and I make the point because it's my favourite story. Isla Bryson was a man, can we wait, who raped 2 women. Do you understand me, peeps? Raped 2 women. Put a wig on, pair of tight trousers, you can see his lunchbox from a mile off, pretending to be a woman to go into a female prison, and Nicola Sturgeon said yes, and that was the end of her. It's not... So me, I'm not getting involved in the trans thing. I'm saying, how can a man put a wig on when you can see his penis through his tight trousers, I'm sorry I'm going to say that word loads today, and be put in a female prison under an ideological madness that is putting women at risk, young girls?
Yeah, absolutely right. There's that element of it. I also think that the element of it, the fact that it was so enforced from universities and schools where people are most impressionable and most vulnerable. And, you know, people are victim of all kinds of bad ideas that get entrenched in early life like this. And the difference with, I think, the trans issue and other things in the past is that you didn't have a cadre of cultural elites saying, yes, this is really great. Yes, you should bind your breasts if you're a young girl. You should look at having this, you know, these kind of horrendous surgeries that will leave you unable to have children. You should do all these
puberty
other,
blockers. Come on, this is just frightening. You know, puberty blockers on kids. Listen, I'm jumping in for a reason because I've been told we got the ultimate call from a man called, this is a new guy from Danny in Croydon. Danny, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon, sir. You through to myself and James Price. What you got?
Hello, Jeremy. Yeah, so about a year ago, I had 16 police officers, Met police officers, 4 of them CID. They came to my house to arrest me for saying a woman can't have a penis to a Labour councillor on Twitter.
Oh, my God. Sorry? 16 police?
16 Met police officers, 4 of them being CID, came to my house and arrested me for saying a woman can't have a penis to a Labour councillor.
Are we expecting the same outside the door of the studio? Well, honest, mate, I don't even know what to say because I spend 3 hours every afternoon listening to this stuff and wondering if this great country of mine, which is beginning to embarrass me, has gone stark raving mad. James, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can say it to the same Labour councillor again and point to the Supreme Court's decision on this, as we should do to Keir Starmer, who has said that you can have women with penises, and most of the front bench. I think David Lammy, the man we've got flying around the world trying to negotiate with Putin and Xi Jinping, thought that you could actually grow a cervix inside a man at one point. So maybe we'll go back to some elementary biology lessons for the cabinet next.
I couldn't agree more. It's madness. And Danny, just take me through it, because we had that story of the radio producer who got attacked by 6 police turned up the other day because he dared to say something. 16 police arrived at your house, took you away?
Yeah, they took me away in front of my kids. My kids was just getting ready to go to London Zoo for the day. And, they turned up around about 8:30 in the morning to arrest me.
Did they handcuff you?
They did indeed, yeah. They took my laptop, my computer, my phone, and they gave me my laptop back to me at the end of the day, but they kept my phone for 3 months and my laptop for 3 months as well.
So you get, sorry, because I'd love to be a lawyer, I'd represent this man in a heartbeat. You then were taken to the police station. What happened then?
So, yeah, I was booked in. I was taken into an interview. I had 2 police officers interview me, and one of the police officers, it was actually a woman police officer. She kept saying to me, when I was saying to her that a woman can't have a penis, she kept saying that I was incorrect and that a woman can have a penis. Sorry,
so this isn't just the police taking offence to a hate crime as they think they are, irrespective of burglaries and rapes and all the things that are ignored. You've got a police officer from the Met telling you that a woman can have a penis.
Yes.
I honestly, I think I'm going to move to Outer Mongolia. What happened? Were you charged? Were you released?
No,
what happened?
I was released that day, and then I got no further action after the 3 months.
Did you, I mean, genuinely, hand on heart, did you give any thought to trying to do something about this, or have you just dined out on the madness of it?
To be honest, haven't really got the time to deal with it.
What do you think it says about this country, Danny? Really good of you to call.
It's out of madness, you know. It's out of madness. That's all I can say.
You must have delighted yourself when you heard that the Supreme Court has today said that a woman can't have a penis. I mean, James is right. You can tweet that for all your life now.
Oh, I will do. Don't you worry about that. I was well over the moon.
Good man. Thanks for making it talk. I really appreciate your call. Danny, a new caller. 16 police arrive at his door to arrest him because he tweeted to a Labour councillor a woman can't have a penis. He gets taken into custody, JP. And the police officers, of course, don't say that. A woman can have a penis, and that was a female officer.
I mean, the pair of us are lost for words with this. It's extraordinary. The one operative thing I think that both Danny and lots of other people listening should do is have a look at the Free Speech Union, an organisation founded to help people in exactly these kinds of circumstances. It operates a bit like a trade union, but not, you know, ghastly and woke. And it will defend people when they are suffering in some kind of way or expressing their legal speech. People should give that a Google, the Free Speech Union.
Good advice, good advice. Danny, thank you for your call. Keep your calls coming, texts coming everywhere now, 87222, on the day that the Supreme Court in England said a woman is a woman. Couple of other things for you. James, how old are you?
Me, I'm 34.
So you won't remember the winter of discontent in 79 that I drone on about, to the point where the kids through the glass go, oh God, Grandad's off again, he's got dementia. But actually, I do remember what happened. When you look at what's happening in Birmingham, I saw the leader of Birmingham City Council interviewed today, and he actually said this: there's no rats. Right, OK. So you've spoken to all the... There's no rats. He said, I think this is just made up. This is fake news. I thought that's interesting for a Labour councillor to use a Donald Trump phrase. Cut to the chase. 3 million people have not had their bins emptied. There are rats the size of cats across Birmingham. This is the Unite Union, which finances and lines the pockets of Labour. Millions every single year. Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer saying, we want whatever. The government are saying we can't afford that, so they're going to go on strike. Sharon Graham, no relation to Mike Graham, head of Unite, is now saying we're going to spread that across the country. I tell my kids this morning, as I said in the intro, this is what happens when Labour is in power, James Price. They offer to get in everything to everybody, and when they get in, the reality is that it's not there. In the old days, they would print money. Now, what they do is they bankrupt the country. And I can absolutely see a situation in the coming months where there will be not enough electricity and there won't be enough foodstuffs and there will be bins on the streets and no ambulances. And people thought me saying that a year ago was mad. I think it's a nailed-on fact, don't you, my friend?
Absolutely right. Look, even without any kind of industrial action or strikes or anything, we're only a few days of no wind blowing and no sun shining away from proper power outages this coming winter because of suicidal net zero policies and Red Ed Miliband bankrupting us as quickly as he can and people, you know, freezing to death. That's before there are strikes going on. And you know what? We all predicted that Labour would be rubbish. I just didn't think it would be literally this rubbish.
That's very true.
A lot of it goes back to a court case where a court had ruled that they couldn't, the bin men couldn't get various privileges because other people working in other bits of the public sector would have to be paid the same because the work was basically comparable. So the bin men were looking at having to take payment shortages or reductions in their salary, and they refused. So I think on this one it's kind of fair enough because there's a load of woke woo-woo going on at the back end of it, and people saying that just sitting behind a till or something is exactly the same as having to go and pick up refuse. So
what I don't understand about the Labour Party is, or the British public, is do they not understand that because the unions line the pockets of Labour, they will call in favours when Labour gets elected? This is not condoning what the Tories have done. One final thing, because we're almost at that moment where we have to sadly say goodbye, which guts me. Priorities. Britain's largest teaching union, the National Education Union, has called Reform UK far-right and fascist and said its leader, Nigel Farage, is a pound-shop Donald Trump. The union pledged funds to oppose the party's candidates in local elections. It said that, backed a motion that far-right and racist organisations, including Reform, seek to build on the despair, poverty and alienation in our society by scapegoating refugees, asylum seekers, Muslims, Jews and others who do not fit their beliefs. The motion also committed the NEU to use its political funds for campaigns against Reform in local elections. Now, again, keeping as calm as possible among you Wednesday mantra of not having a breakdown live on Talk. I send my kids to school to be bloody well talk maths and English and the things that matter, not to be indoctrinated by left-wing crap.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid they're in the wrong school system then. This chap that said this silliness about reform, I've got a few things here that he's also said. He described Britain as being a, quote, brutally racist state. He said the education system was already fundamentally and institutionally racist. He's had to apologise for shouting "globalise the Intifada," which is obviously an out-and-out call for the murder of Jews everywhere around the world.
Oh, and in fact, because he was saying that this reform was anti-Jewish. That's what he was saying, organisations. That's interesting after that one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's his job. It's his job to be anti-Jewish. He had to apologise in the defence of Jeremy Corbyn for saying people just wanted their 30 pieces of silver. He was spoken at an event where there were other anti-Semitic slogans shouted he's had to apologise for. Don't think we should be taking these people seriously. Who we should be taking seriously when it comes to education is Bridget Phillipson, Labour Education Secretary, who has gone quieter than people like Ed Miliband and fake solicitor Jonathan Reynolds and David Lammy and Rachel Thieves and all the rest of it. But she is, I think, actually secretly, quietly, the single most destructive person in any government for a very long time, because what she wants to do is empower those trade unions to destroy all of the reforms that the Conservatives did that have made schools in England the best in the whole of the Western world, the best they've ever been. And why is she doing that? To gain the power of those unions you just mentioned, JK, so she can succeed Starmer when he falls. So she is sacrificing the future of the children of the people watching this show right now on the altar of her own vaunting personal ambition. It's evil. It is totally evil. Listen, mate, it is always a pleasure. Glad you're back. Regards to Mrs. P, and we will see you next week. James Price, former government special advisor on Talk Drive. JK here till 7. Thanks for tuning in. So this is the day the Supreme Court said a woman cannot have a penis. Much joy and happiness amongst the common sense elite, not much amongst the allies of, well, activists, really. They've said it's an evil judgment and it puts society back 20 years. We had the biggest day of migrant crossings yesterday. Well, the sun's out. Yeah, brilliant. Unions are plotting a summer of discontent where my children will learn what it's like to have no food and no electricity, and I'm not joking. And we are at a point where biggest union to do with education is calling reform far right and pledging funds to fight against a political party instead of concentrating on teaching our children. 4:25, back in 3.
We win the next general election, we will go to war with the leadership of the National Education Union. They are a clear and present danger to, frankly, to the education of children. Let's remember, teachers are there to teach children and youngsters how to think, not what to think. And I think it's a completely inappropriate thing to instruct teachers how to instruct children to think with regard to issues of current affairs and politics.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
4:28, Wednesday afternoon. Piers Morgan has just tweeted, "Amazing news from my motherland." I love this. It's common sense at its best. What did he put here? I've got to read this. It's fantastic. "Amazing news from my motherland. A woman can't have a penis." This is this Supreme Court judgment earlier today. I said to Ryan, "Can we not get somebody on from Sex Matters, you know, Macarena, or the people?" He said, "No, they're all out celebrating the result. They're all drunk. They can't do anything this afternoon." It is sense, it is common sense, but it's caused a right old reaction amongst activists. They're up in arms. So, listen, we'd love to know what you think about that. So many of you texting already. Afternoon, Jezza. I see. Starmer has lost his marbles. Apparently he's looking to do a one-to-one migrant swap with France. Yeah, this will not benefit the UK whatsoever. It'll probably cost us even more money. Keith in Durham, you're ahead of the game, but we're fair enough. Francis in Sussex, "My daughter is a teacher and left the education union recently because they got too involved with politics." Yeah, that's true. Jeremy Carl, "This is a great decision for women, not common sense for women." Hello to Anne Sewell. Talk. "I'm 75, I'm a grandmother of 9 and I haven't got a penis. It's a fact." Well done. I'm delighted to hear it. Danny's call about the Met Police, says Caroline, shows that the police know it is not a crime to state factual information on biology, but rather shows that they're trying to intimidate people and stop us from speaking the truth. If they came knocking on my door on such an issue, I would tell them to get lost. This is what we must do now. Interesting. Mike says, "No rats. I visited Birmingham yesterday and saw a huge rat with a cat in its mouth." Oh, dear God, that's dreadful. True. Kenny from Edinburgh. "Jeremy, can you please go and sit in a darkened room? Go out for a sneaky wee, pint, fag, whatever. Just go and have some Jeremy Kyle time, because something needs to get you to relax and chill out. The UK and your blood pressure needs it." Well, fair enough, OK. Keith's in Blackpool. "How can we get to net zero when we're letting illegal migrants in every day? They drive so many cars on the road as well as everybody else. It's hypocrisy from the government." Oh, do we give them cars now? Yes. And somebody else from Edinburgh. "Can anyone give me a single example of anything Nigel Farage has said that is properly far right?" Agree with him or not, the man is not racist. He loves Great Britain, and is that any different to those on the left that hate him? We've all got the same destination, but a different way of getting there. That's very interesting. 0344 499 1000. Can I just add into the mix before we bring up... Who is our next guest? Oh, it's not a guest. It's a very, very impressive person. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my successor on Drive. Apparently not. Peter Cardwell, hello.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Have you ever met a woman with a penis?
No, because they don't exist.
Tremendous news about... I mean, it is common sense. And also, I just want to put to you, my dear friend, something that I said earlier, and I'd like your response, because you're far more... And by the way, can I congratulate you? Last week, your interview, the Hamas interview, the lawyer, was absolutely outstanding radio, my friend.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So we've got two sides to this argument, common sense, you know, and then we've got the trans activists and people who are saying this has put the society back 20 years and it's evil and whatever. Why do we never, in your mind, my friend, hear from the very women who jump up and down quite rightly and advocate women's rights? I said to James, and I'll say it to you, I've got a teenage daughter. I don't want her in a changing room with a man with a penis and a skirt pretending to be a woman. Why do the very women who quite rightly talk about and advocate and want women's rights to be at the forefront of whatever, why do they go quiet on this issue? Because this is frightening. That to me is the most frightening thing, Pete, genuinely.
Well, I think some people put their head above the parapet, but they know this is a toxic debate. And also there's a real desire, especially from the younger generation, not all of them, but some of them, and I would say the majority of them, that they don't want to be seen to be prejudicial, they don't want to be seen to be hateful in any way. Not that it's hateful to state the truth, and not that it's hateful to be very straightforward on this. The point is that this is a really toxic debate. There are very, very few people who can have a reasonable argument about it, but it is, as the Supreme Court now says, and we knew previously anyway, biological fact has to be paramount in all of this. I don't think there are too many people who want to make life more difficult for trans people. People who are trans often have a very difficult life.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that happen in their lives that aren't very nice.
And can I jump in and say I agree with that? And I also, what I hate about it is that they're and I did it before on a television show that everybody knows about, and I've interviewed people, and genuinely it's a very difficult thing, right? But what has happened is the whole debate has been hijacked, as it always is in this country, by the ideological left who have made it all about them. That's what I think.
Do you know what? I feel sorry for a lot of women who have been on the receiving end of this. I feel sorry for a lot of people who think it's outrageous and want to have a reasonable debate about it. I also feel sorry for there are many trans people who are very reasonable about this, who say, do you know what, let me live my life. I don't want to make life more difficult for anybody else. I don't want to be in a changing room. I don't want to be at a women's refuge. This is something that is perfectly sensible, and they are unfortunately the loudest voices in this, often, as you say, from a very hateful, very left-wing position, and sometimes on the other side of the argument as well. Well, those people, I think, need to take a look at this judgment, realise that the law is very straightforward on this now. The Supreme Court has ruled on the Equality Act. That is the #1 piece of legislation that governs both rights that are specifically for women and specifically for trans people. The Supreme Court has spoken. That's it. Let's all go home and realise that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. It's as simple as that.
For you, Mick in Wallington, you said, ask Pete because he's more intelligent than you. Will ideological police chiefs have to change their woke policies now of allowing trans officers to search women and girls, now that the definition of a woman has been confirmed? Very interesting question from Mick in Wallington, to be fair.
I certainly hope so. I mean, if you are being searched, I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that someone of your own sex should search you if that is something you want to happen. And most people would, and most people do. And that's usually what happens. But certainly, I think that police chiefs do need to get up to speed with the law. And I think there will be challenges to this in regard to the trans lobby, but there should also be challenges to this if the law is not implemented in the correct way, and if there are people, for example, in that example you cite there, who are saying, actually, hold on a second, we need to all get into line with this, because there are far too many instances of so many parts of the state actually not aligning with the law and not realising what the law is. But this is really public. Everybody knows what's going on. The Supreme Court's been crystal clear with this, and we now know exactly what the law says. Really straightforward. Let's get on with it. Were
you listening to Danny's call? Did you hear Danny's call from Croydon?
Was this just before the break? I think I did.
Well, a new caller. He was 16 police arrived at his... Actually, I'm going to play this to you because I'm going to play this to... You did hear the call, yeah?
Outrageous, absolutely outrageous.
16 police, sod burglaries and rapes, sod people's shops being ransacked and houses being done and people being stabbed in the street. We're going to send 16 officers around you because you tweeted a woman can't have a penis.
You know what the police need to do far more than they do? And I interviewed a guy called Maxie Allen a few weeks ago, and 6 police officers came around to his house, arrested him and his wife, held him for 11 hours because he was criticising his daughter's school. That was it. He wasn't being hateful. He wasn't victimising anybody. He wasn't doing anything other than a couple of spicy comments, nothing even that spicy, to be brutally frank. He was arrested and held. What the police need to do when people make complaints, just because someone makes a complaint, just because someone lifts the phone or files a complaint, they can say, do you know what? Where is your evidence? We don't have to act on this. We don't have to arrest someone. We need to say, where's the evidence?
Because so many of these never have further action, which tells you that they're doing it on a whim because they're ticking a box. Let's move on to the other thing, political, if you're all right. I'll talk about boats in a minute. I'm really interested by this outrageous announcement by the National Education Union today. It's called Reform UK Far Right and Racist, and said its leader, Nigel Farage, is like a pound shop Donald Trump. What's even more frightening is they have pledged funds to oppose the candidates from Reform in local elections. Now, we have to be careful because there's a thing called Purdy, you know this, when elections are on. You haven't got kids, I have. This is bloody outrageous, Peter. This is... I don't know what's going on with this country. We've now got the biggest union, the biggest teaching union getting involved in... So what are they telling our kids in school, for God's sake? What ideology is being foisted upon my children on a daily basis? Frightens me enormously.
It frightens me too, and if there are teachers listening to this who are heading home from work and have the talk on in their car, I would urge them, leave the National Education Union, because these people are not about education. What is Nigel Farage's views, which, by the way, are not far right, and he is not a pound shop Donald Trump, What are his views got to do with the education of our children? What does the National Education Union having a stance on this? What has that got to do with the fact that our children are being educated? Absolutely nothing. As usual, the people who go into unions, some of them are very good and fight for workers and get collective agreements and all the rest, and that's all right. That's fair enough if that's what they want to do. I'm not a member of a union, and I'm not likely to be anytime soon. But the point is that that's what they're meant to do. What they're not meant to do is take big political stances, and the National Education Union needs to realise what it's for. It is not meant to be a political force or an anti-reform force in this country. And if there are members of the National Education Union who believe in democracy, they should not be members of the National Education Union.
And furthermore, Talk did an exclusive. We've got some real traction, by the way. I'm sure you know about this. This is what the National Education Union should be concentrating on. Britain's classrooms are being filled with unqualified teaching assistants, including out-of-work actors and shop workers, as desperate schools look to fill the gaps with cheap labour. This is one primary school teacher told us exclusively from South East London. TAs obviously go through DBS checks, but that doesn't stop mad people coming into the classroom. One day I was given a teaching assistant who spoke like a pirate the entire time he was in the classroom. And he worked at Hamley's toy shop. He didn't make it past lunchtime. And you've got a union telling children and telling us and telling the world. And because I'm not getting political, 30% in the poll yesterday in The Sun support reform. You've got a union saying Nigel Farage, who potentially could be our next Prime Minister, is a fascist, but they're not doing anything about the fact there's no classroom assistance. It's an absolute disgrace, man. I'm getting angry again.
It's almost as though it's dead easy to slam Nigel Farage, and it's perhaps a bit more difficult to sort out the teaching assistant situation. I know a few teachers, and there are loads of children now who are diagnosed with all sorts of problems. Sure. There are lots and lots of children who do need teaching assistants. There are some who are perhaps not as much.
What I'm saying is that the priorities of them getting involved in politics when there's things within the classroom for the good of children, the good of the people in their union, that surely they should be concentrating on more.
You're absolutely right, and there'll be many teachers out there who will say actually could do with a bit of support from the National Education Union in terms of people who are perhaps not up to standard, who are teaching assistants. There are lots of teaching assistants who are really, really good at their jobs, but clearly the standards have been lowered in terms of getting them in, and that's a real shame because there's so many kids out there who do need a teaching assistant who aren't getting ones of the right calibre. And yeah, the National Education Union should be doing something about that. They should be lobbying the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, about it. That's what the big bit of a union needs to do. The heads of unions need to deal with those serious granular issues that are about not Nigel Farage, but actually, hold on a second, what's that word again? Education.
Yes, that's it. Actually, to finish, and you've been fantastic, Bridget Phillipson was described by James Price 20 minutes ago on this station as the most frightening member of the cabinet in his mind, and somebody who was selling on the altar of her ambition to cosy up to the unions because she wants to replace Keir Starmer. She is trading children's futures down the line. What do you make of Bridget Phillipson? I mean, you're much nearer to these people. She's getting herself a bit of a reputation, isn't she?
I disagree with James Price. I've known Bridget Phillipson for 20 years. I disagree with her politically, but I think she has good intentions. They may not work out necessarily in terms of how she runs education. I think a much, much more worrying, and the person I really fear about in the cabinet is Richard Hermer, who is the Attorney General. He has represented some very, very bad people, like Jerry Adams, for example. He has some views I really don't like about the Middle East as well. Richard Hermer is the one I think we should be putting up.
We'll add him to the list. David Lammy, who spends his entire time eating. Miliband, who's going to bankrupt the country. Phillipson, who wants to destroy our children. Now a bloke as the Attorney General who's friends with people he shouldn't be. You're a legend. What time are you on tomorrow?
Between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock tomorrow and Friday.
Saturday, when are you on?
From 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday, and then on Monday again between 10 and 1, sitting in for Julie Hardy-Brewer.
She's not working bank holiday, bless her. She doesn't. We're all told we have to, so we're on Monday. But listen, mate, thank you. And I repeat what I said. If you get a chance to catch up on that, Pete did an interview with a lawyer about the Hamas representing lawyer. It was utterly fantastic radio. We'll see you tomorrow, Pete. Thank you so much indeed. Peter Cardwell. Graham in Bushy says, how will schools now teach trans issues in schools? Very interesting. Jeremy, Labour are crapping themselves about Reform UK, and rightly too, says Tony. Jeremy, another Jeremy. Gender issue. The reason why so many women have not spoken out about this is because they've seen what happens to women such as Jenny Murray, J.K. Rowling, and members of the public like Kelly J. Keane. That's the reason. Jeremy to Jeremy. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We will be back with the legend that is Mike Graham next on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, we've done it, Kevin O'Sullivan. Mike and I, hello, how are you?
Yeah, very well indeed.
Jody, you're going to have to come in whilst he's on air and put the things in his ears.
No, I've got the thing in my ear, but I can't hear anything, so I'm just asking whether or not I should be able to hear anything.
I wish you could see this.
Or whether or not...
Jody is squatting next to Mike.
It's
Come on,
the limbo.
Jody, in you come.
It's the limbo.
Can you limbo?
Am I supposed to be able to hear anything through this, or what? I've tried the volume, it's not doing anything.
Oh, bless him.
You know.
She's on her knees. It's all going on. Welcome to Drive.
It's not doing any
this
difference.
makes Kevin O'Sullivan look organised. Did you hear that last night?
I did. I was watching the show when it happened. It was quite remarkable, and I really enjoyed the fact you replayed it 3 times before the end of the show.
Have we got it?
Yeah.
Look at it. No, look at him. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Yeah, get it. We're
going to play it again on Friday because we do gaffes on Friday. Gaffes of the week. I think it's the gaff of all time, isn't it?
It was the biggest gaff of all time. He walked in the middle of the show and started a conversation and didn't know we were on air.
Yes.
A slight giveaway because the light's on and there's sort of cameras in action.
And apparently he did say to somebody outside, you know, how am I supposed to know you're on air? And somebody said, well, you are a presenter. You are meant to know these things.
Yes. Anyway, listen, I want to talk to you about something that will send you through the roof.
Yes.
Because you've been busy.
Yeah.
Today is a very, very important day. The day the Supreme Court, Piers has tweeted, everybody's tweeting, saying... Some common sense.
We were
last.
right. Well, sorry, I'm going to say this. We were right again.
Yes.
You know, once again, talkTV, correct. Yeah. Thank you very much. Another tick in the box.
A woman.
We told you so.
I don't think you can say that.
Can I not?
No.
Okay,
a woman can't have a penis. I'm in the middle of talking about this with James Price.
Yes.
When I took a call. Yeah. Right. You think you've ever heard? This is Danny in Croydon. Have a listen to this. All Go.
Right. 16 Met police officers, 4 of them being CID, came to my house and arrested me for saying a woman can't have a penis to a Labour councillor. They took me away in front of my kids. My kids was just getting ready to go to London Zoo for the day. They took my laptop, my computer, my phone. I was booked in. I was taken into an interview. I had 2 police officers interview me, and one of the police officers... it was actually a woman police officer. She kept saying to me, when I was saying to her that a woman can't have a penis, she kept saying that I was incorrect.
I'm sorry. I mean, of all the calls I think I've ever done in 30 years...
That's incredible. That is quite incredible.
16 police officers in Croydon. Let's forget the rapes, the burglaries, the muggings, the stabbings, right? To his house, arrest him, cuff him, take him to the station, keep his phone for 3 months, no further action.
And how many people has this happened to?
I'd love to know if that's happened to you, by the way, team. Anybody
Because if you can think back to all of the people who have been raving on about this absolute and utter cobblers that we all know, if you'll pardon the pun.
Cobblers is fine.
The bottom line is that, you know, a woman... is very obviously a woman. I mean, that's more or less what the judge said. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court have ruled that a woman is basically someone born biologically a woman. And that's the end. The other interesting message, I think, is that trans women are not women. Therefore, trans women are men. It's that simple. So once you say it that way, it makes a lot more sense.
They've attacked it, trans activists and others. They've called it an evil judgment and said that it's risked setting our community back 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what community they're talking about. I don't know of any trans community. I know of plenty of online hate preachers on the trans issue. I know of plenty of people who've gone out, like there was that guy who was threatening to punch people in the face, punching women in the face. Yeah. You know, I've seen them attacking women. Yeah. You know, people like India Willoughby, you know, who's vitriolic about women. You know, and all of the celebrities, all the Harry Potter brigade, all the politicians. Let's not forget the Prime Minister.
Nicola Sturgeon lost her job.
Couldn't identify a woman. Nicola Sturgeon lost her job. The SNP, John Swinney, you can list as long as your arm of all of these bozos who were telling you basically that what you could see with your own eyes wasn't true.
Cobblers by bozos. Yeah. That's what I love.
It's absolutely right.
I mean, it is, you're right, it's absolutely...
it's nonsense. And finally we've got a judge in this country and some other judges who can see the truth. Thank goodness.
Oh, hold on. Jeremy, this is Darren in Barnsley. I've just seen on the BBC Sports website that the FA are still going to allow trans players in women's football under certain conditions. Do you think that'll change because of today's ruling?
Well, I think it's going to have to, because legally speaking, you're now breaking the law if you're allowing a man to play in a women's football team, aren't you?
I'd love to know what Sharon Davis thinks. We'll try and get her on today. I mean, it's an absolutely monumental decision and the right decision.
Of course it's the right decision, because, funnily enough, Julie Hartley-Brewer this morning said there can only be one really, really proper decision, because the other decision, if they'd come down on the other side of it, that would have been insane.
But you know what's really interesting for me coming and doing the show today? The world we live in, this country, which I said to you on Plank, is becoming an embarrassment to many of us. I wouldn't have been that shocked and surprised if it had have happened.
No,
if I'm completely honest.
To be honest, the legal sort of judiciary of this country is so left-wing that you would have thought they might have supported it. And of course, Jolyon Moron, you know, the man who likes beating up foxes on Boxing Day,
yes,
you know, he was predicting that actually the trans lobby would win this.
Of course he was.
So he got that wrong as well.
Yeah,
along with every other case.
The other thing I want to talk about, loads of things, but this, I am another frightening one. The National Education Union.
Oh yeah.
Nigel Farage and for Reform are far right. We're going to pledge funds. We're not going to worry about the fact that classroom assistants can get a job if they never even done even anything. We're going to concentrate and pledge funds to fight the far right fascists.
I know.
Forgive me, you've got kids. Are teachers supposed to teach bloody children?
Yeah, but they haven't done it for a long time. I mean, your kids are in the school system as well.
Yeah.
You know, I know for a fact that when my kids were at school, they're literally, the youngest is now just about to be out of it. But, you know, they were told in no uncertain terms what the truth was. And the truth is climate change is going to kill off the world. And if you don't believe it, you're some kind of climate change denier. You know, my son went through it during COVID, where he refused to wear a mask. And they said, are you some kind of COVID denier? And when he said to them, well, you can't prove that and the teacher said to him, you know that they can prevent you getting COVID. And he said, well, you can't prove that. And they didn't know what to do with him. You know, they kept putting him in detention because he kept asking questions about things. And he kept saying that, you know, there's only two genders and a woman is a woman and a man is a man. And they hated it because they've been taught this. And in every single corridor that when I went to visit his school, this was a state school in Sussex, every single corridor had a wall of the announcements. And on every single wall was a Stonewall poster. And it was all about LGBT, and it was all about, you know,
it's not just you and me, is it? It's
genders.
out there, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Alice tells me at university, they stood up the lecture and said that Britain our army was evil. It was responsible for every war. We're going to take a break. Mike and I are going to do some calls. 10 to 5 on Talk Drive.
When that national insurance contribution, that increase for employers that feeds through, that will be an increase on everything from your shopping to going down your local pubs to absolutely everything. So those figures will no doubt be going up during the course of the year. So it might just be a Good Friday, and that's it. And then from there on in, I think it's a very rocky picture for this Labour government. And as you said, in hock to the trade unions, it is going to be a summer of discontent.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
6 minutes to 5. We are with the legend that is Migrant. Back tomorrow morning with Morning Glory. We've just done Plank, which you should watch on Friday. It's actually very funny.
It is very good.
Peter Blexley, another crap suit with a bunch of daffodils, would be my summary. Let's go to Grace in London. Grace, Jez and Mike are with you. What you got for me?
Well, as a woman who feels sometimes that I'm not, stereotypically pretty and womanly enough, I really appreciate there being a clear scientific definition that everyone can agree on about what a woman is. And as someone who's normally on the left, in the sense that I'm really concerned about injustice and inequality of wealth distribution, I'm really perturbed that some people have thought that trying to redefine what a woman is more important than the fact that there are, for example, people in our world who don't have clean water to drink and things like that. I don't understand why those things have had less attention in recent years.
And I said it before. I don't understand why people who are very outspoken about women's rights, you hear nothing because they're terrified about what is going to be said. And you are dead right. It's nailed it. It's common sense, and that's interesting. Politically, Grace and you might be different, but she's saying as a woman she totally supports this, Mike.
And I've got so many women friends who feel the same way. Politics doesn't come into this. This is not political. It shouldn't be about left and right. It should be about what's right. And what's actually right here is that there are two genders, male and female, the end. If you want to pretend to live like a woman, that's entirely up to you.
Absolutely.
You can do it if you want. You can call yourself Mrs. Jones.
You can do what you want.
Or Mrs. Doubtfire, whatever you want to do. But, don't try and get me to be convinced that you're a woman, because you're not a woman. And it doesn't give you access to women's changing rooms. It doesn't give you access to women's, refuges, women's prisons. It's just not sensible to do it that way.
Completely agree. Grace, thank you. Let's go to Dorset. Lovely down there,
Dorset.
by the way, this morning.
Very nice.
Dorset, I don't know. Pete, good afternoon. You're on Talk Drive. Mike's with me. What you got quickly, pal?
Hi there.
Go on, hurry up, mate. Come on, time is money. I know the connection to Dorset's a bit slow. What you got for me? Come on.
Bad signal.
Okay. Look, we are being held to ransom by the minority. We should be in the majority. Now, if some man wants majestic mammaries, or if a woman wants Percy penis, then they better have a letter in their home from a consultant seeing that they're going to have some kind of surgery or whatever it is because they've got some medical complaint. Because if they haven't got a letter from the consultant in their home, then basically there should be some problem with them and they need psychiatric care.
I have to cut you, not because I'm being rude, but because the line's awful. But he's making the point. It's the other way around. We are were being held to ransom by a minority, which since this Supreme Court judgment has come in, we're not anymore, right?
Well, we're a very tolerant country. We have been in many ways too tolerant over the years. And if you are in a minority in this country, you've probably got more rights now than the majority does.
But how does that make any bloody sense?
It doesn't make any sense at all. Rather than that, let's go back to what we used to be, which was a majority country which decided to be tolerant towards minorities, leave them alone, let them do what they do, but don't come talking to us and telling us how we should be living. But I also have
I agree, but I also have this feeling that the genuine people who are wanting to transition, whatever, and you, like you said, leave it. But it's been hijacked by do-gooders, by the left. Very quickly to Gloucestershire. Dr. Foster was there. David, you're on talk. You've got 2 minutes. Mike's with me. What you got?
Good afternoon, the pair of you. Very, very quickly. So I think this is the fight back begins. That's my opinion. At last, we're going to actually see some common sense at last. The backwards-forwards life that we've been living, or the lies that we have been being told and we have to accept, is the way, we're now going to have to accept that the lies are lies. We're going to have the truth. Thank God for that.
Completely agree.
See, I'd like to see the Prime Minister now coming out and saying, look, I was wrong. Because there was a time when I thought that a woman could have a penis. It now turns out that, legally speaking, and I'm a lawyer, I will have to abide by the law.
I've got an answer to both of you.
Yeah, go on.
Really interesting. Jan in Newcastle. Do you not think it's ironic that Keir Starmer left this country this morning on holiday because he probably knew this judgment was coming, and now he's on holiday. He doesn't have to answer the question of why he said a woman can have a penis. Call me a cynic, but a penis. A woman can't have a penis. Call me a cynic, she says, but I reckon we need to get him back and put him on the stand. I think that's absolutely right,
well,
Jan,
I mean,
in
he's
Newcastle.
always talking about the law, isn't he? He's a man that respects the law. He stands behind the law.
Will he respect this judgment?
Well, he'll have to, because, you know, he is an officer of the court, after all. He's a qualified barrister. He is a man who should absolutely abide by the Supreme Court, the highest court in this land. There's nothing else he can do. He'll have to say, I made a mistake. I can now categorically state, for the record, that as the Prime Minister, I believe that only a woman who was born a biological woman can be a woman. The end. I'll write the statement for him if he wants it.
Brilliant. It's lovely to see you. So tomorrow morning, back at 6 o'clock?
Back at 6 a.m. sharp. I'm not sure what we're doing.
Sounding great, by the way.
It's been amazing. This morning, the story, I know you're about to run out of time.
That's
but
right.
The story about how I had to explain how you take 700 people who have come here illegally back over to France, pick them up, leave them around the corner, pick up another 700, bring them back, who are allowed to be here. I mean, it's just madness, isn't it?
That's what our government is concentrating on.
That's what they're thinking of doing.
And yesterday, more migrants came than ever before, any day, 705.
705.
Listen, it's
God
always a
bless
pleasure. We love you very much indeed. Mike is back tomorrow morning. The man who started talking common sense before the rest of us were born, and he's been proven right again. The Supreme Court proving that a woman cannot have a penis. We're on the way to instead of that. Ever do a radio show where you go to the news at 5 and go, the news at 5 is next, but the big news is that a woman cannot have a penis. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Drive for Wednesday. Just gone 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a radio programme / television attempt, 0344 499 1000 gets you through to the beautiful Jodie. When I say beautiful, I'm not being disrespectful. She's a beautiful person who does so much. She gives so much of herself to so many of us. Ryan's here. He doesn't give any of himself at all. He just scowls at us all day. He can get him on via WhatsApp as well. He sent a little voice note starting with, Ryan, you miserable git, would be a good way to start your voice note today. 0344 499 1000. Your text messages. Thank you, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Jace is in Hastings, where I once was taken off a coach having gone for a dirty weekend because my appendix had burst when I was 20. Just sharing the story. The bubble of fantasy has been burst. What a win for common sense with the Supreme Court. Couldn't agree more. Chris says, Trump said there were two sexes and now we have judges who are agreeing. Thank the Lord. Sean says, off topic, but I feel bad for Mike Graham. He's got to go to bed in a minute to get up for work at 4 a.m. Love the show. Sean in Norwich, let me tell you something about Mike Graham. He lives it like I do and he loves it. He'll go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock after a nice meal and some wine. He'll bounce out of bed at 5, 4:30, 5 o'clock. He'll be in here. He does it. He does it because he believes it. He cares about it. Jez, this is Peter. No, love to Peter. Oh, Sally. I was in London at the weekend and two places we visited had unisex bathrooms. Never mind the pee on the floor and a man coming out of one of the cubicles, not washing his hands and using the handle and straight onto his phone. There were young girls in there, little crop tops, having to share the same space with men or trans people. It's not only unsanitary, but it is also unsafe, and I say that as a mother, which is a perfect point to bring in a man who also has teenage girls like me. Russell Quirk, how are you, dear boy?
Yes, hello. Talking Mike Graham.
Can I finish my bourbon while you speak?
Yeah, I'll just waffle on for a few seconds.
Yeah.
How long is that going to take you?
Go on,
yeah, Mike Graham, he's a machine, isn't he, really? I'm not even sure that he's human, really. Hardest working man here, that's for sure. Can I also just say, there were a few people that were noting that I had been absent from the Kevin O'Sullivan show. Sorry to talk about another presenter's show, Jez, on yours. And
do you want to talk about the Kevin O'Sullivan show?
Well, maybe
not walks in the middle of...
Maybe not last night.
Yeah.
No, and saying, oh, Russell Quirk must have been dropped. He's been cancelled. I can assure you I have not, and hence I'm here, and I will be on Kevin's show next Monday, albeit I don't think Kevin's here, so don't get confused. But I'm here. I haven't been cancelled. I haven't been dropped.
Well, you might have been, because like the rest of us, you dared to say that a woman couldn't have a penis
We've been saying it for a while.
I remember standing in the talkTV studios about 2 years ago when Piers Morgan interviewed Sir Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer could not answer the bloody question. Yes. Now, it does beg the question. After today's ruling that a woman cannot have a penis, and Mike made the point, I'm going to make it for the rest of the show, does this mean that our Prime Minister, who is a lawyer and has always abided by the law and has disappeared rather conveniently on holiday, is going to come back to the United Kingdom, stand in front of the press and say, actually, I was wrong, a woman can't have a penis, because he should do as the Prime Minister and he should do as a legal person.
I think Keir Starmer and, in fact, the entire Labour front bench, the entire Labour government, because they've all said similar, haven't they?
Yep.
They have a dilemma. You know, they now have the ideological nonsense that they've been parroting for the last few years versus now the legal definition of a woman, that is a woman can only be a woman if she's a woman in terms of her biology, chromosomes and so on. I think what they also need to consider, and this is definitely a legal matter and something that will be much debated, what now happens to those toilets and changing rooms that have been designated as unisex?
Well, we just had that text from that lady.
Well, it did. So I would now suggest if the Supreme Court, the highest court of this land, have said that women are women and men are men, and women can't have penises, and women have XX chromosomes, and men have XY chromosomes, and so on, that now there needs to be a reshuffling, shall we say, of this woke nonsense. Little smile on your face. You thought I was going somewhere else with that, didn't you?
Yes.
No, but there needs to be, seriously,
yes,
a rejigging of the law with regard to the nonsense that has been such things as toilets that are both men and women, or indeed allowing men in wigs that are men and not women into women's changing
You've got
rooms.
a teenage daughter who's great at paddle. It terrifies us, doesn't it, as parents? It does. I don't care. That is not me being... Mike nailed it. I nailed it before the break. I've nothing against trans people. I've a lot against the people who have hijacked. I've interviewed trans people. They don't want any of this rubbish. They want to just get on. It has been hijacked by, as ever, whatever these people are. And
simple.
It's not, it is simple.
It's
and
really
I
simple,
cannot believe in a country, hear me out and say, I can't believe in a country with all the problems that we've got, that we're concentrating on whether a woman's got a penis. That tells you everything.
I know, and the fact that we've had to, or a certain body of women have had to take the country to court to establish what a woman is ludicrous. I think
Fair play to them, by the way.
Julie Hartley-Brewer said exactly that on her show this morning. This is crazy.
Yeah.
What sort of country do we live in where we have to have the supreme justices of the United Kingdom deciding for us what a woman or a man is? Now, we all know what a woman is and we all know what a man is. We shouldn't have to have it defined by court time, and goodness knows how much that cost, presumably the taxpayer.
I completely agree. Tim in Suffolk says, I love your show, but I didn't think it could get any more quirky. You see what he did
has.
there? There you go. 0344 499 1000. We'll take your calls with Russell. So that's the big news story of the day. The other big news story, which again as a parent I feel really strongly about, is that this disgusting... The National Education Union, are they really representing kids and teachers and what's right, or are they, again, an ideological union? They've announced today that reform in their mind is far right, Nigel Farage is a pound shop Donald Trump. But further, and I think quite worrying, they've said, we're going to spend our funds on fighting these fascists in the elections. Now, we have to be careful because of a local election situation, and we know what we have to do when we're broadcasting. But forgive me if I'm wrong. What does that say about the ideological crap that is being put upon our children in our school system right now? That's frightening.
Yeah. So, I mean, unions are there, apparently and presumably, and so they've said for many, many years, for the benefit of their members in terms of the rights and the conditions of those members. They are not there, even though, of course, they're political. We all know that they have a politics about them, but they're not there either to spout politics or indeed to presumably spend their members' money without a mandate, without a vote, on fighting a legitimate political party that has as much right to exist as even the Liberal Democrats, dare I venture. So, what on earth are they doing? And what now makes me very, very concerned, and I guess we already know the answer to this question, Jeremy, is if this is the philosophy within the education union that then trickles down to our teachers, that then trickles down to our children, I think we know the kind of ideology that our kids therefore are being taught. It is one of the left, it is one of Marxism, it is also one of curtailing free speech, because Reform and its candidates and the party generally have a right to an opinion. Just because you disagree with it as a union doesn't mean that you should fight them as if they're the Nazis, which they are not, by the way.
It doesn't matter whether I support Reform or not. For me, the debate is about... Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. We went to school to, what is it, the 3 R's? Reading, whatever, okay, it's not even
reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yeah, arithmetic, yeah. And it frightens me that people are being employed or are in schools that have that ideology.
Well, it's an indoctrination,
This is the same day the Talk Exclusive, which gathered real traction. Britain's classrooms are being filled with unqualified teaching assistants, including out-of-work actors and shop workers, as desperate schools look to fill the gaps with cheap labour. Talk has been told that schools are becoming so stretched, and head teachers are taking in anyone who passes a criminal record check, even if they've never set foot in a classroom before. Now, if I was the National Education Union, and I had at my heart or my interest the best for the children, I would be concentrating on trying to make sure that it became more of an interesting career and that we're getting the right people to teach our kids, not spouting about how I'm going to fight Nigel Farage because I don't like his politics.
Well, and if those unionists want to fight Reform, or indeed the Conservatives or Labour, whoever, well, then I suggest they stand for election. Just do that.
What do you make of these two subjects? Loads of you want to get on. 0344 499 1000. The biological woman is a woman, says the Supreme Court. Do you agree? I hope you do, because it's common sense. The teaching union, the National Education Union, saying, we're going to fight Nigel Farage, he's a fascist. We're going to use funds from our members to fight this far-right group. This is madness. 0344 499 1000. To the phone lines. Do you mean to Lancashire?
I've been through it, I think.
Famous for its cricket and hot pot. Michael, good afternoon. Welcome to Drive Time. How are you?
Jeremy, I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for coming. Russell Quirk's with me. Hasn't been cancelled. What can we do for you?
I just wanted to ask, obviously, with today's ruling,
yes,
is it time now that we should demand that the English FA make a public apology, a poor girl that was absolutely dragged through the mud for simply pointing out that one of the opposition players was a man? Clearly was.
Yeah. Remember the story well, absolutely. She was castigated, she was sanctioned, and it begs many questions. I mean, are the FA going to apologise? Is the Prime Minister going to apologise? As Russell said, is the Cabinet going to apologise? Are loads and loads of organisations who have, as many do in this woke society, which we're trying to change, have done, they've jumped on this bloody... Because it's a bandwagon, isn't it, Michael? It's a bandwagon. That's what it's become.
Absolutely, and I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. It's been completely hijacked. I think afternoon it was mentioned, back when Nadia won Big Brother, wasn't even talked about, discussed or anything. People just lived their lives and they did it the way it should be done.
Should we not forget, Michael, as well, the 3-year-old, the toddler, that was expelled from her nursery for being, in some way transphobic. I mean, this now makes that decision that...
A 3-year-old was transphobic?
Yes. Makes that decision look even more
Hold on,
ridiculous.
you're talking out... So, just hold on 1 second. Mike, carry on. Russ, sorry.
It just makes that decision look even more ridiculous. And again, there should surely be an apology for whoever made that decision to the parents of that child.
Completely agree. Sorry, Michael, crack on.
Just saying, that was insanity without this decision, and obviously this decision just puts it, even more in the spotlight.
I go from, probably because I work here, I go from a common sense angle, and I go from the people that I know of all ages, and everybody I know will go, why are we even having this debate? There's major issues in this country, and we're talking about whether a woman has a penis. Michael, thank you very much indeed. Get this out. Jim, in Tynemouth, in Devon, we have a lovely new theatre, but the toilets are mixed. A woman has to be subjected to mess on the floor. Perhaps today they will finally go back to ladies and gentlemen. Fab Show says, Jim, that makes a very good point. Are we going to finally lose? I told the story about Brighton, it said, took my daughter to the university, it said anything goes. I went and had a pee in the car park. Yeah. You've got a daughter, I've got a daughter. I don't want a bloke with a penis in a skirt coming into a female toilet. What is wrong with saying that?
I now think that it should be mandated by law as a consequence of this decision today that men's toilets should be inhabited by men and women's toilets should be inhabited by women. Do exactly what Donald Trump has done in terms of to mandate that there are 2 genders and 2 genders only. But the other thing I think now we need to have a serious debate about is the debate that we've been having around sport for years and years, which is a man that identifies as a woman can go and compete in women's sport, and we've seen it in rugby, in golf, in darts,
snooker,
paddle, tennis, and so on. Now we have this ruling, and Keir Starmer and the front bench, Jeremy, have the comfort of being able to fall back on this ruling now and say, hey, look, the Supreme Court has said so. Let's mandate as a country, as a legislature, that men cannot compete in women's sports, even if they're wearing a wig and lipstick.
Can I only say something that I didn't think about it, but when we were doing that dreadful story about that pool or snooker competition, you see a lot of men who are apparently transgender being involved in female sports. It's happened in tennis, it's happened in golf, it's happened in swimming. Sharon Davis, who's with Kev later, such a strong voice on this, right? And you can talk about men's strength and all those sorts of things. You never see a woman trying to be a man, and we never see those transgender people going into a male sport.
Men being a woman.
That's exactly. See, I get confused because in the end, you just don't. I mean, I'm so old-fashioned.
Or women trying to compete in men's sports. Yes, it's they wouldn't get very far.
Let's go to Bournemouth. It's lovely down there. It was this morning. Karen, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. It's excellent news today.
Yeah, well, not for the trans. The trans activists and allies have criticised today's evil Supreme Court decision, ruling that a woman can't have a penis, accusing lawmakers of attacking minority groups and putting them at risk and putting our communities back 20 years. What's your response to that, Karen, in Bournemouth?
How sad, never mind. I'm ringing about the education thing.
Oh, yes, this is
this ruling will affect that, because now the teachers won't be allowed to be telling children that they're in the wrong body.
Right, interesting.
And I worked in schools for years, and by law, they are not allowed to express their political views to their children.
Do you think they are, though?
Well, of course they are, yeah. But... Ofsted should be going in now and, writing down the guidelines or whatever to say, right, this stops now.
It's very interesting, isn't it, actually, on the back of this judgment. Thank you, Karen in Bournemouth, Russ, that there are so many aspects now, as you've said. We've talked sport, we've talked education, we've talked about the FA. She said a mandate for education. You've said across the board. All these people that have jumped on this sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it the penis bandwagon because I can't think of a better analogy.
Sounds like a terrible bandwagon.
I know. They're going to need to change the way they think and, in fact, the rules. I mean,
the laws have got to change.
I wonder whether people will ignore those laws.
Well, let's go back to the school point. I mean, 2 of my daughters go to state school, believe it or not. They do, because they're grammar schools and they're good and they're free. I won't mention the name of the school, but there are children in that school identifying as cats that are allowed to identify as cats. They are humoured by the faculty. There are talks amongst teachers and students about kids having multiple genders and almost the encouragement of being non-binary, or boys being girls on a Tuesday but maybe not on a Wednesday, and so on. That has to stop. Now, just to take the caller just now, just to kind of stage further, it's not that teachers shouldn't be able to have a view. They just need to be neutral when it comes to expressing it to our vulnerable children. So you can have all the politics you like. You can be a Marxist, you can be a communist, be what you want, but don't extol your views and ideologies.
But you see, the
to
left
9, 10 and 11-year-old kids.
The left would say, and I love your responses, it's really interesting this, Ryan, try and keep awake. The left would say, but your normal is not our normal, and you've been putting your normal on those children for years. Well, they need to know what our normal is. What would you say to that, seriously?
But you don't have to inject politics into teaching. I mean, politics in maths, geography, or whatever. I mean, I suppose you can always try and add in a bias if you are of the left or the right, I suppose, particularly when you're talking about history, and the Nazis and Mussolini and the Russian Revolution of 1917, which somehow I still remember from quite a few years ago. But there are facts, and then there is the twisting and the tweaking and the manipulation of facts to a political agenda. But what I'm talking about is, lifestyle, and particularly when it comes to gender ideology, that has no place in schools whatsoever.
No,
what we should be teaching is maths, English, geography, chemistry, and indeed biology, but from a factual perspective, not an ideological perspective.
Couldn't agree more. 20 past 5, 0344 499 1000. So we're talking, a woman is a woman, say the Supreme Court. A teaching union says reform is a far-right fascist movement. Before you go, I keep going on about the winter of discontent in 79. Sharon Graham, the leader of Unite, yesterday saying about the situation in Birmingham, I'm going to spread this out. You are our age, yours and me, Mike, that sort of thing, Kev. Do you see a summer of discontent? Because every time there's been a Labour Party in power in my lifetime in this country, they've done three things, which is bankrupt the country. They've been at the beck and call of unions who throw their toys out of their prams, and we as people suffer massively. That's what I think's coming. What do you reckon?
I'm afraid that the late 2020s, which we are now in, is mirroring the late 1970s. I mean, I am old enough to remember the power cuts and, the bodies in the morgues and indeed literally rubbish on the streets. Of course, a lot of people, below the age of 40, 45 don't remember that. But I think it's up to us of a certain age to remind people that this was a factor of the Labour government back then. The unions being way too powerful, the unions not just wanting more power, more control, shorter working weeks, more money and so on. It bankrupts the country. And the problem is that, of course, the unions and the Labour Party are embedded, they're enmeshed. So there's a real issue here in terms of the Labour Party simply aren't going to stand up to them. So you end up with the unions that are unelected, have no mandate, basically destroying this country, like they did the car industry back in the 70s. That's basically, forget Brexit and everything else, that's why we have no car industry anymore, is because British leyland workers wanted to work 2.5 days a week and have a 45% pay increase.
Absolutely
it's mirroring the 1970s. It's happening again, but I'm afraid, to you lot out there, 25% of you voted for this.
He's very right. 521. Russell, thank you so much. Oh, actually, before Ryan's doing that look, just don't do that look. That look is scary.
He's going to get rid of me. Fine.
No, he's not going to get rid of you. No, he says you look like a badger with your hairstyle. Can I just say, yesterday was the highest number of migrants in a day.
It's 700, wasn't it?
705.
Yep.
Nothing getting better.
Yeah, costing 40 grand a year each. So what's that? About 28 million quid.
Get out of here. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Drive. Thank you to Russell Quirk. What do you make of it all? It's madness, isn't it? 87222 on the text. We'll be back in 3. I'm off for a week.
We've both done our weekly check. Apparently, we still haven't grown our penis. I don't know if you want to do your check and see whether you've grown yours or not, but what's your message to the Prime Minister, who apparently thinks that some of us have penises?
Well, I would just echo the message of the highest court in the land and the top judges in the land. And by the way, there were two women, Lady Simler and Lady Rose, on that panel, and they were both there today. The judgment was read, the two judgments on two cases were read by the President and Vice President, but the two lady judges were there too. It doesn't really matter what the Prime Minister thinks about this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
What a day, 5:25. We're live across the UK. It's sort of windy but sunny in London. I hope it's all right where you are. This is the day the Supreme Court finally saw sense and announced that a woman is a woman and can't have a penis. There are two sexes, two genders. It's all great. Piers Morgan's over the moon. He's even tweeting from America saying, "In my motherland, there's some sense at last." A lot of people delighted, several up in arms. Loads of you texting, by the way. I'm loving the response today. I wonder how many organisations, I don't know who this is from, will secretly be relieved by today's court ruling about this gender insanity because they were far too afraid to stand up in the past about something they knew that was fundamentally very wrong. Interesting. Mick says, are we still going to see men beating up women in the boxing ring due to the ideology of the Olympic Committee? That's true. That'll be really interesting. Teachers want to ban kids taking phones into class in case they record their Marxist teachings. That's very interesting. Bloody hell. Pete in Southend, I remember the coronation, but people laugh and say it was 2 years ago. Right. David Hills, afternoon, JK. Thank heavens, common sense has prevailed, but why on earth did it take so long for the judiciary to come to the same conclusion that over 99% of the population already knew? What a waste of time and money. Yes, David Hills, but I suppose you'd say at least we finally got there. I never thought that I would get to speak to a supremely talented female journalist on the day that my first question to her is about a penis. Alicia Fitzgerald, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive.
That's always your first question.
You look like you're working as a dental receptionist. Would you like an appointment, Mr. Carr? What's going on?
Is it just because I've got really good teeth? Is that I'm gonna take that from it, and not the fact that I'm wearing a very highly buttoned jacket. I'm gonna choose to see it as a compliment.
Yeah. I'll see the doctor at the dentist in a minute. Can I apologise to you? I am going to do that thing for you tonight. I absolutely promise you. We're doing something private. On a serious note, you are somebody who is always very honest and open about your opinions. If you don't want to answer this, fine. But today, finally, for many of us, the Supreme Court, well, I suspect 99% of this country, has done what most people would think is the common sense option, to say that a woman is a woman. A woman cannot have a penis. This has been attacked by trans activists, saying this is an evil decision that's put back their community. But actually, the response here is that this is absolutely the right decision. And the further question is how that will reverberate in terms of education in the classroom, in terms of sport, in terms of many businesses who seem to have... Because in my mind, Alicia, so many people have jumped on the bandwagon. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think also since this was decided earlier today, we've heard from, and sorry, forgive me for making this about politics, but that's kind of my remit. We've heard lots of politicians come out and speak about it. We heard Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservatives, obviously really happy about this decision and hasn't made any kind of quiet about the fact that this was always the way in which she thought this should go. But on the flip side, there have also been some MPs who feel really uncomfortable about this. I think Nadia Whittome from the Labour Party, she said that she's really deeply saddened by this decision. And so have some Green Party MPs and various other Labour MPs too. So it's definitely not unanimous across the board that this is going to be really accepted, even though...
it has to be accepted because the Supreme Court, and you made it political and quite right, and I'll give you the example. The authoritative politician in this country, allegedly, is Sir Keir Starmer, who conveniently went on holiday this morning, right? This man has publicly... I mean, I was in the studio with Piers when Piers asked him, right? This man has publicly stated that a woman can have a penis. He wouldn't answer the question. He was absolutely... Presumably, your experience would tell you this, that as a lawyer who respects the law, makes a big thing about that, I would now expect my Prime Minister to come out and say, I absolutely stand behind the ruling of the Supreme Court and will agree with that judgment. But you've already given me a Labour MP who says she's disappointed. Is she nuts? Is she nuts? A woman can't have a penis. That's ludicrous.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's just one of the many who are quite outspoken about this, and maybe me saying accepted is the wrong word. Of course, you're right, it has to be accepted. It is the law, and obviously anyone who's a member of Parliament or even outside of Parliament has to respect that, because that was a decision by the Supreme Court. But that doesn't mean that people are going to be unanimously happy about it. And also, I think the important thing to say, though, in that kind of line is that, yes, although this has been a decision that has been made, this isn't an excuse for people to be kind of abusive. And I think lots of MPs are actually being quite nuanced in the way that they're expressing that. They're saying, you know, this is the decision that's been made. It's correct that this decision was made, but this should not be taken and galvanised upon in any way to be abusive to anybody, as this wasn't a decision related to... This wasn't a publicly made decision. This was something that was done legally. So.
But it's really interesting, and you make a really brilliant point. It shouldn't be used to abuse, but this is what annoys me about this whole debate. I have in the past interviewed people who are transitioning, and that is their choice. And I can categorically tell you that these people, those people, however you want to describe them, are just wanting to get on with their lives. They don't want the furore, the attention and the focus that this... I don't know whether you'd call it a lobby or activists or whatever, but it would be fair to say, would it not, that this is another subject in this country which has been jumped upon and hijacked by certain people. Alicia, I think that's what annoys so many people. I really do. I think it's been hijacked.
Yeah, and I think not just by activism groups, I mean by politicians as well. I mean, it's become this massive political topic, and it's not really political. It shouldn't really relate to which side of the political spectrum you're on, whether or not you agree with this or whether you don't. I don't really see how it massively aligns to a Conservative or Labour ideology, but it has massively, over the past few years, become this kind of hot, contentious culture war topic, which I imagine if you're someone in that situation, if you do classify yourself as a trans person, is only making your life, which is probably already quite difficult, even harder. So, you know, at least whether or not you agree with the decision made by the Supreme Court today, at least potentially some of that argument, I suppose, will be put to bed.
I just want to play a voice note and then we'll move on, because we're going to move on to the fact that apparently it's OK if you're part of a teaching union to call one of our political leaders a fascist. Mary, on the gender ruling, go.
I just wanted to say that 2 years ago I was asked to leave my local pub, banned, because I was overheard talking to two male colleagues that I didn't want men who thought they were women coming into our little local health club, okay, which has many pensioners and young children there. So I absolutely celebrate what the High Court have done today. End of.
There you go. She's pretty focused on that. Let's talk about a real political hot potato story today, Alicia. Frightening to me. National Education Union, which I presume is the biggest union, should be concentrating on improving the education of our children, has come out today and labelled Reform UK far-right and racist. They've dismissed Nigel Farage, which is their right. I doubt, though, the way they've done it is right, as a pound shop Donald Trump. Frighteningly, politically, the union's pledged funds to oppose the party's candidates in the local elections. Now, we have to be careful, you know this, in terms of local elections, but is it really the place for a union to decide to use its members' money to state that they don't like a political party and fight against it? That's the beginning of quite a frightening scenario in my mind.
I mean, look, I guess whether you agree with it or not on the way in which they did it, they're not a political entity, I suppose. Unions are allowed to kind of express political view. However, that does not excuse the kind of language that was used and the way in which that they actually went about this. But the kind of debate about whether or not they're allowed to slam another political party, they are. It's not illegal. It's not outside of their rules. They can actually do that. But of course, it will definitely have some kind of repercussions.
I don't say that to you as a supporter of reform. I say it to you that a union When we reported on Talk today that Britain's classrooms are filled with unqualified teaching assistants, including out-of-work actors and shop workers, this was an exclusive that Mike announced this morning. Desperate schools, Alicia, are looking to fill gaps with cheap labour. Talk has been told that schools are becoming so stretched that head teachers are taking in anyone who passes a criminal record check. I would have thought the National Education Union would have been more concerned about working out how the service they provide to children was more rounded and better, rather than, again, we get back to it, pushing an ideology. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think that opinion is very much shared by lots of people, and even people who actually support this union. Lots of them are just saying this is the wrong thing for a union to be focusing on, especially a union that represents schools and teachers. I mean, it's just, again, it's political point scoring, which we've seen so much of recently, and again, the over-politicisation of a topic that actually doesn't necessarily have to be massively political. At the end of the day, everyone wants better schools, everyone wants better public services, and it's somehow become this kind of quite nasty political point scoring match, I suppose, which no one really wants to see, and it doesn't actually achieve anything either. So that's the other key thing to
the other thing that I wanted to do with you, I mean, this is brilliant. Apparently this country is in talks with France over a one-to-one migrant swap deal with small boat arrivals. Can you tell me more about this bloody story?
Yes, it's a difficult one to kind of get your head around. Basically, the UK government are in talks with the French government about a one-to-one migrant swap, and the idea here is that someone who arrives illegally in the UK could be swapped with a legal migrant from France who wishes to reunite with some family in the UK. So, for example, if there's a legal migrant in France who has English or family who are living in the UK, they would be deemed as viable to swap with an illegal migrant who arrives.
So have the French agreed to this?
Well, it's not official yet, but we know that this is kind of on the table, and it would be a kind of pilot test out to see if it had any impact. And Labour have said that this would help to kind of smash the gangs.
How? How does that smash the gangs? So you're sending an illegal migrant back to France who are only prepared to take it because they're losing another one, but that's a legal one. But how come the legal one didn't get here in the first place and the illegal done had? That's down to the gangs, but you're going to tell me that it's not going to stop the gangs at all. They actually haven't got a policy, and I was not a big fan of the Tories in Rwanda, and I made that perfectly well known. But it has to be said that yesterday 705 Channel migrants arrived in the UK, the biggest number since the beginning of the year, and Labour have done absolutely nothing to stem this problem, have they?
Yeah, I mean, what Labour are saying about this new idea with France is that it's better to have a migrant who has done all the paperwork, who is legal and actually has some family already in the UK to kind of help immerse themselves in British culture, than it is to have a standalone migrant who just arrived here on a boat and has no knowledge, has no understanding of the language, has no link there. That's their kind of logic. But obviously, when it comes to the actual net migration number, all you're doing is swapping one for another. It's not actually going to bring that number down. It's just the quality of the migrant, I suppose, which is
the quality of the migrant. I mean, how bad does that sound? Just either we can, or I don't understand. There doesn't ever, and you're much nearer to politicians than I would ever be, but there doesn't seem to either be the intelligence or the desire amongst whatever political party to say, we are going to deal with this. It's good to throw out sound bites, isn't it? Smash the gangs, go to Rwanda. No. Create a system that says you are not entitled to be in the United Kingdom. Bye-bye. We're not going to fall for the BS that your son doesn't like nuggets or that you might be persecuted back in your home country. You're not coming in. And I think that is, again, I think it's difficult for very few people. I think most people in this country understand that we're at a moment where things are really hard and that the migration problem, the net zero madness, is exacerbating those problems. That's what I would say from an old man, you know.
Yeah, and I think also just the fact that we have this backlog of asylum claims that have been building up and up and up over the years that still haven't been cleared because there simply aren't enough people there to clear them because of the volume of people arriving. I mean, it's just things that are actually quite straightforward, or seem to the public this is a straightforward problem that could be solved quite easily. Clearing backlog claims, I mean, this is literally a case of having someone doing documentation and paperwork. It's not particularly complex.
Even at your young age, you will remember the passport crisis about 3 years ago. You couldn't get a passport for months. So they recruited new people and brought in new training techniques and a new computer system, and now you can get one very quickly. I don't understand how successive governments, without again moaning, but haven't got the foresight to go, we're going to create an office with 1,000 people we're going to train, and we're going to do this properly and quickly. That, you know, we're not going to... It's a bit like the trans thing, the gender discussion today. It's become such a hot potato. Illegal migrants, you lot are horrible. You don't want people coming to your country. No, hold on a second. There's too many people. Oh my God. It's been at the centre of so many people's debates, and yet in the end I think to myself, it can't be that difficult unless I'm missing the point.
No, I mean, I guess maybe you'll have to stand for Parliament then, Jeremy, if you got all the...
Well, I'd like to see the doctor first, or the dentist, if you can get me my appointment. I must say, and I do love having you on. How's the other half?
You know, it's been about 4 weeks since you've asked me that. It's been quite nice. Yeah, he's good.
How long have you been together?
Like a year.
Are we getting towards commitment, living together, a ring on the finger, or anything like that?
Nah, well, I mean, you just implied I was born like 3 years ago, so by that regard, I'm probably a bit young.
Lovely. I'm very pleased for you. You deserve it. God, that sounded really condescending, but I meant it really nicely. I'll sort that thing for you later. Alicia Fitzgerald, thank you very, very much indeed. 20 to 6. Dave's on. Voice note, gender, go.
Hi, Jeremy. My name's Dave. I'm a guy with a penis, even though it is pretty much just ornamental these days. I just want to check, am I legally allowed to say I'm a male? You know, it's been a few minutes since the last ruling, so I just want to make sure.
What did he say about his penis? He said, could we play that again? I was slightly more concerned about what he said about his penis. Amy's smiling. It must be funny. Go on, go.
Hi, Jeremy. My name's Dave. I'm a guy with a penis, even though it is pretty much just ornamental these days. I just want to check, am I legally...
His penis is mental, or the whole thing? What did he say? Metal? Ornamental? His penis is ornamental? What, he puts it on the mantelpiece? What are you talking about? Why? How can his penis be ornamental? It's not like you can hang a lampshade off it, could you? I don't know, honestly. I never thought I'd end up doing a programme where we've said penis so often. But thank you, Dave, on gender. So listen, my dears. Why am I calling you my dears? Like Mrs. Doubtfire. Oof, Doubtfire, dear. I specialise in the... No, don't start. If you want to be on... Oh, ornamental, serving or intended as a decorative ornament. That's what marriage is. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back MG tomorrow morning with Morning Glory from 6 till 10. Julie here at 10. This is JK and Drive. I don't mean to debase any part of this discussion. Obviously, today the Supreme Court has decided that a woman cannot have a penis. The last call is still rather confusing us all because that man said, I've got a penis, and as out of respect, he said it's ornamental. Now, we know that ornamental... Jodie's gone off on one now. Ornaments need dusting unless they're used regularly. And Ryan's decided that I should throw this out. Has anybody ever called your penis an ornament? Do you see your penis? I don't... Why? Really? 8722. Start your message with the word talk. Let's go to Nottingham. Carl, you're on Talk Drive. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. I'm very well, thank you.
Anybody described your penis as an ornament?
Only my wife.
Brilliant, which means it's unused and dusted once a month. Anyway, thanks for coming on, Carly. What you got?
No, you're very welcome. I just love talk radio. Really is the home of common sense.
Thank you.
Basically, mate, you know, I was listening to the subjects about the Supreme Court taking, was it say 5 years?
Yeah.
To come to this decision.
Madness.
I just love to know how much taxpayers' money had been spent keeping the judges in a job when
you're sort of right, because we're all celebrating a Supreme Court judge making a decision that 99.9% of this country agree with, and we're all going, this is fantastic, and then you stop and think, well, how much bloody... You're absolutely right. Why has it taken so long, and how much has it cost?
I can't understand it. I mean, President Trump, he nailed it within minutes. You know, he was perfectly right. I watched him on TV, and he was surrounded by the school kids, and he was talking about...
He's big on ideology in school, so am I. I think it's disgusting what they're teaching in school.
The kids, there were a lot of girls around him. They loved the fact that he said to them that there would be no more men competing against you in competition. Yeah. And I thought, why don't people listen to him? What is it that they don't understand in this country?
Because the woke left, the bedwetters, he will be abhorrent. There's much about him I don't like, but I have to say you're right on this issue. He's all right on this issue. I think common sense is... I mean, he used it during that inauguration speech. I think common sense is... I'm going to say on the way back, Mike's been talking about it for years, Talk's been talking about it for years, but it's almost as if people are going, hold on a minute, all this ideological crap that means that we seem to look after victims, not victims of crime, but perpetrators. We seem to allow people to come to this country and have stuff, but not give it to the people who have been born here. This sort of slant of education where we're teaching our kids not, the 3 R's and how to be good people, but we're teaching them how you can change your sex, so you could... Or I think people are just waking up, and that can only be a good thing, can't it? Listen, it's really good to have you on, my friend. Carl in Nottingham. Whereabouts in Nottingham do you come from?
From a tiny little sleepy back village called Cockgrave.
Brilliant, Cockgrave. See, I didn't even know that. I was hoping you were going to say Newark, because I was once abused on stage in Newark, and I was able to say that the man in the audience comes from a town that's the only town in England that's an anagram of... it begins in W. Back in a minute. Thank you very much, Steve. John's in Stratford-upon-Avon. How are you, John?
Hi, Jeremy. Great show.
Would you describe your penis as an ornament?
No. I was going to say great presenters at Talk TV, and you're certainly one of them. Just going back to the Supreme Court ruling.
Yes.
I hope this is the beginning of the end for wokeism in Great Britain.
Yeah.
But the point I wanted to make, I don't know whether you got the clip or not, but if you could show the Sir Ed Davey, who's leader of the Liberal Party, when he was asked, do women have a penis, please see if you can play it, because it's really interesting.
I won't play that. I actually am prepared to listen to almost anybody. I find him...
he's a buffoon.
I don't understand. The British people gave this man 72 seats. I don't understand. All he does is dress up. I mean, he was at Shrewsbury Market the other day doing the Donald Trump thing. I was watching it on Plank going, we've got free markets here and I can... He's an absolute end of an ornament.
He is, and that clip just shows him up, and I hope he comes on TV and apologises.
Of course, hold on a second. Let me tell you why he won't come on, because we would dare to criticise him. But this is a man, by the way, who yesterday said, I agree with Sir Alan Bates. Those victims of the post office scandal should sue the government. I think you'll find that during the coalition in 2015 to 2017, he was the post office minister, my friend.
He was.
John, lovely to have you on. My regards to Stratford-upon-Avon. Would you like my William Shakespeare joke?
Go on, tell me.
William Shakespeare, 1663, lead in his pencil, 1664, lead in his coffin.
Yeah.
It's crap, but I thought I'd do it.
Terrible. Stick to presenting, Jeremy.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. That's John in Stratford-upon-Avon. Sports on the way with Samuel Ellard, who's deigning us with his popularity. But I'm going to now do 100 metres in 3 minutes and have a wee. Back in 3. Cheers.
It's great to see you. You're kind of the most senior Tory in the House of Commons now, pretty much. I'm hearing from people that if Kemi Badenoch doesn't make it through the year, you might be installed as a temporary leader.
People have talked about me as a temporary leader since I got in the House. I tell you, why do I have to be temporary? No, the truth is, it's not a job I'd want, to be honest. It really is the worst job in the world, being leader of the opposition.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9 minutes to 6 on a day that the Supreme Court said a woman cannot have a penis. People are now sending me penis jokes. I just said to my makeup artist I couldn't find it, meaning something I was looking for, and she went, presumably you were talking about your penis. Push the button, please, Amy.
Sport Summary on Talk.
From a discussion on penises to Sam Millard. How are you, son?
This stuff isn't funny.
What do you mean it's not funny?
Can you explain the joke to me? I've been saying for 10 minutes.
The Supreme Court have decided
about penises.
Quite rightly that a woman can't have a penis. Massive thing, right?
Right. All right.
And one bloke phoned up and said, my penis is like an ornament.
Right, hilarious.
It doesn't get dusted very often. Since when everything's gone downhill.
Like it doesn't get any action. Is that what you mean?
No. How are you? Still single?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, still single.
Brilliant,
yeah.
not surprised. So we were both wrong last night because an extraordinary game, although I was on the train, I was following Aston Villa in the Champions League against PSG. PSG start like a train, 2-0 up within 34 minutes, and the comeback nearly took place, 3-2, and I think they proved themselves to be Champions League quality.
Yeah, so you do get the train, do you? You get the train home, do you? Interesting.
Well, yes, I do.
Times have changed, haven't they, for you, right? Used to be what? I imagine private jets, escorts, now it's just the train like everybody else, right? No, it's good though. It's good. I get the train, you get the train. It's normal. How else would you get home, right?
Absolutely.
It's completely normal. Good for you. You're a man of the people. That's why we like you, Jeremy, on the show. Yeah, so PSG went 2 up, didn't they? Which meant they were 5-1 up on aggregate. And yeah, I think at that point we all thought it was just going to be a routine PSG win. They were going to cruise through. Fair play to Villa. They scored before half-time, but then 2 goals really early on in the second half. And you just felt like something was going to happen. You felt like Villa were onto something. They were pressing, they were harrying, they were hurrying. We'll stick with pressing. They were making life really difficult for PSG. They had that Ezri Konsa header, which he probably should have scored. Maybe the only criticism is he took Rashford off around the hour mark. And Rashford started the second half really well and set up this goal for Ezri Konsa. I felt like when Rashford came off, they lost a little bit of momentum.
He lost the ball 14 times in the first half.
First half he was poor.
This brings me on to another thing, because I was reading this today in the paper. Ollie Watkins, they turned down 45 million from Arsenal in January. Suddenly he's not in Unai Emery's thoughts. And will they sign Rashford? It's a very interesting analogy.
You know what, Rashford did well in the second half, Jez, but I tweeted before the game, I could not believe Rashford started over Watkins.
So what's happened?
Watkins has got 50
some fallout?
goals. I don't know. Maybe some rumours he's not fully fit, Ollie Watkins, but Emery hasn't confirmed that. Watkins has got 50 goals in 130 games. He scores every other game for Villa. He's been a key part of Villa getting to the stage of the competition.
You start to question, and I'm going to throw something out there which wouldn't go down with the future King of England, but you think, John Duran, they let him go. That seemed to be a massive mistake to me. Looked class. You're going to fall out with Ollie Watkins. Rashford's going to go back to Manchester United if you listen to Wayne Rooney. Maybe Unai Emery's not very good at getting on with people.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I'm not sure about that. I mean, he's obviously getting on pretty well with this team, given the fact that they're in the Champions League quarterfinals.
Giving you something to talk about and get excited about, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots to be excited about.
We were both wrong, though, last night, but tonight is the game that I really want to talk about. Arsenal.
You excited for it?
I am excited because I can't believe that they beat Real Madrid 3-0.
Thumped them.
I mean, it was an extraordinary performance a week ago. Declan Rice scoring 2 of the best free kicks I've ever seen at the Bernabeu tonight. And I'm being completely serious. I think Real Madrid will win 4-0.
Seriously?
I genuinely think they're going to turn Arsenal over.
Can they win 4-0?
Can Real Madrid be that rubbish?
No. But they're going to be a lot better. That's obvious.
If Arsenal score, they'll win the tie.
And the thing is, my prediction is, I think Madrid are going to win tonight on the night, but I don't think they're going to go through.
Do you know?
I think there's going to be lots of goals in the game. I just think with Madrid having to push bodies forward, and we saw how suspect they were defensively last week. I just think with Arsenal's quality on the counter-attack, your Sakas, your Martinellis, your Odegaards, I just don't see Arsenal not scoring tonight. And they get 1 goal, it then becomes not impossible for Madrid, but so difficult. So I think Madrid might win on the night. They've got so many good players. They're at home. They're proper up for it. But I still think Arsenal get through overall. But one thing I would say, Jez, what we all need tonight, sorry Arsenal fans, you won't appreciate this, we need an early Real Madrid goal. Some early goal.
No, I agree.
In the first 15.
But more than anything what we need
exciting.
tonight is we need to say hello to Oliver, my son, because he's watching Ollie Bolly, I love you loads. Say hello to Oliver.
Ollie Bolly, I love you loads.
No, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say hello.
Is he the lad that comes in?
No, that's Henry.
How many kids have you got?
6.
You've got 6 kids?
Say hello to Oliver.
What camera am I looking in?
In the bloody camera.
So looking to this one?
No, that's ludicrous.
How old is he?
5.
What team do you support?
West Ham.
Hi, Ollie Bolly. Unlucky under Graham Potter, not going too well. Keep hold of Bowen, keep hold of Paqueta, keep hold of Kudus.
He doesn't even know what you're talking about.
Well, you said say hi, Ollie Bolly.
Just say, that's it, stop
hi,
building.
Ollie Bolly.
All right,
you're talking about penises.
No, we haven't mentioned that because we haven't mentioned that word. If I say penis, he'll laugh. Actually, Rachel says, have you got a target number for how many times you can say penis today? I don't have a target number, but it's going up. Ollie, we love you loads. He knows what a penis is.
No, I'm sure he does.
Of course he does. Harry Kane's Bayern Munich. Actually, predictions. I think they'll win 4-0. You think Arsenal will go through?
I think Madrid will win on the night, but 3-1 or 3-2. So I think Madrid win on the night, but Arsenal go through.
OK. Other big game, Harry Kane, who left Tottenham because he hadn't won a trophy. Bayern Munich 2-1 down against Inter Milan. Bayern Munich come back and do this tonight, definitely.
Oh, I'm not so sure. Inter look a really good team. Inter look good defensively, like a proper old-school Italian team. Hard to beat, hard to break down, good defensively. I love to see Bayern get through. I want to see Harry Kane win trophies. He's going to win the Bundesliga this season. All right, you got Bayern, I reckon Inter get through tonight.
Now, the big news is all my mates are in Florida, the golfing boys, and they've found a bar. They've played at Shingle Creek today, and they're off...
Why are you there? Not invited.
Working. They're playing... they're all at find a sports bar in America to watch Newcastle Crystal Palace. Now, Eddie Howe in hospital with pneumonia. Jason Tyndall taking over with Graham...
Jones.
Thank you very much. And Newcastle, this is their game in hand.
Yeah,
if they win tonight, this is probably more important than anything for them. If they win tonight, they go third in the Premier League.
Even if they avoid defeat tonight, draw gets them up to third.
Yep.
They've won the last 4 league games. They're just looking, everything's coming together at the right time for them.
Which is interesting after the Carabao Cup, because there could have been a drop-off,
very easily, but they've just got that midfield three, is the most well-functioned midfield three in the Premier League. They've got the best centre forward in the league. You've got players like Murphy and Barnes in great form. Newcastle win tonight, a little bit of a buffer now between them and 6th place, because 5th place we know is enough to be Champions League football next season. They're defending well, they've got real strength and depth, and they're just in a rich vein of form. Palace, to be fair, as well. A rich vein of form. Palace, to be fair, are in decent form themselves, and they travel well. I just think tonight, massive game for Newcastle, that crucial game in hand, go up to third, above Forest, which is amazing when you think of how well Forest have done this season and the narrative around them.
And I also think for Newcastle, and I've been there so many times, and
you support Newcastle, don't you?
Secretly underneath, and it's becoming more and more, to be honest. But to keep Gomeres and Joelinton and Isaac, to keep Gomeres,
Bruno, sorry,
and Joelinton,
Champions League football was important,
and to keep
Isak's the one, isn't it?
Isak, yeah, absolutely. They have to get it. My father-in-law's just texted me with one word, Chelsea. I'll text you back with 2 words.
Rubbish.
Right, yeah. What?
Rubbish.
Yes. So that's it from you. Thank you
Andre Onana, by the way, Ruben Amorim's confirmed he's going to be in goal tomorrow night for their massive...
Crap.
Well,
he needs to be sacked.
Who?
Amorim.
Do you think?
Shall I tell you why?
Because they're 14.
Roy Keane got it. Managers supposed to improve players and improve a club. They've gone downhill.
Do you think you're improving as a host as you get older?
No, I think I'm getting worse.
I don't think that's true.
Thank you. No, listen, that's why they put me on 3 days a week now, because...
Yeah, the other guy's good, though, on Thursdays and Fridays.
They just can't afford me. I'm joking. News.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Along Final hour of Drive for Wednesday. We're live across the UK on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense, on the day that common sense seems to prevail because the Supreme Court, my dear friends, oh, God, what a time to golf. I was doing really well. Has announced that a woman cannot have a penis. Let's also acknowledge this fact, right? The women of Scotland who brought this judgment, they're talking about women. Trans people are absolutely, they're fine. It's not about them. It's about a motive of people hijacking this balmy madness. Trans activists and allies have criticised today's evil decision so that it puts back our community 20 years. Other people are saying, how come it's taken 5 years and millions of pounds to make what is essentially a common sense judgment? Now, what's he doing there? Now, a bloke, look, I'm just being honest. A bloke sent a message about his penis whereby everything's gone completely mad. Are we doing the Dave one again? Right, so this is Dave's first message about his... This is the first voice note Dave sent. Go.
Hi Jeremy, my name's Dave. I'm a guy with a penis, even though it is pretty much just ornamental these days. I just want to check, am I legally allowed to say I'm a male? You know, it's been a few minutes since the last ruling, so I just want to make sure.
So we got very confused by ornamental. I thought that's like you're married and it doesn't get touched and it gets dusty and has to be dusted once a month. Jodie then weighed in and said, depends how much you use it. Dave's back, second voice note, to confirm what he was saying about his penis. Did you ever think you'd hear this on this show? Go.
Hi Jeremy, this is Dave again. Absolutely typical, isn't it? I finally get on national radio to talk to the nation about my ornamental penis, just as I'm going through the Hindhead Tunnel, so I lose the signal and can't hear my own statement. Very disappointing.
Brilliant. Well, you've made it on national radio. You're now known as Ornamental Penis Boy. 6:05, we're live across the UK. Having just come out with that phrase, to introduce my next guest, who I haven't spoken to in months because he's far too important now and disses me, but I am delighted. Here's a man who has a lot to say. Former Conservative Special Advisor, we love him, Charlie Rowley. Welcome to Talk Drive.
Hi, Jeremy. Lovely to see you again. And I would never be far too important for you. That's a lie.
What's going on with the facial? What's going on?
Well... midlife crisis, maybe?
Don't be ridiculous.
I don't know.
You've got a beard, dear. What's happening? It's all gone a bit weird, isn't it?
Are you not a fan?
No, well, listen, I think very, very 007. Can I start with this ruling, Charles? I'm going to call you Charles because you've been very naughty. Trans women are not legally women. And the Supreme Court today, making this judgment, this was a motion brought by some women in Scotland. It was about women. It's not about dissing the trans section of our community. What I believe, and I think what millions of people think, Charlie, is this is common sense, thank the Lord. Wokeness is about to be kicked to the touch. But more than that, in the aftermath of this decision, it's taken 5 years and millions of pounds to come out with something that will just make sense, mate.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. You've teed that up perfectly because this isn't about the trans community. The judge obviously made it very clear that there is a number of rights and equality legislation there to protect those people who genuinely are trans and have issues in their own life, which actually, you know, these people should be supported and be able to live their
not
life
hijacked and used as a reason.
Exactly. This was specific about women, and making it absolutely clear to some of the most important bodies, like the NHS and professional doctors, when you have to be examined, or if you have a medical complaint, or if you're being sent a letter to say you might need a screening, or you know, whether it's for men's issues or for women's issues, and it is specifically to, you know, make it clear that it is either women's issues and men's issues when it comes to the health service. It's making it absolutely clear that if you are biologically male, you cannot compete or should not be competing in women's sports because of the biology that gives you a competitive advantage. The reason why has it taken, as you ask, you know, so many years and however much money just to distinguish and get a definition that if you are biologically male, you shouldn't be competing in women's sports? You know,
again, you're so right, mate, and it is about common sense, and I'm glad that we made the point. You know, this is not anti-trans, which is why these activists again. What it is it's about those bloody activists who have got us to a point where in hospitals, a man is asked, he phoned the show the other 70, are you pregnant? I mean, it's just I mean, I'm going to say the wrong thing. That's just common sense. That's rubbish, utter rubbish. So common sense, but you're right. What happens here, what happens in sport, what happens to the NHS, what happens in education, where there's an ideology being pushed upon. And here's another great thing for you as a political nerd. Interesting, our Prime Minister went on holiday this morning and was out of the country because he and his entire cabinet, plus those dreadful people from Harry Potter and several other weirdos, have jumped up and down and been supporting this. Is he going to, as a lawyer who has always stood by the law, Charlie, going to stand up and go, do you know what? I was wrong. A woman can't have a penis. Because presumably he holds the highest office in this country and he's a lawyer. Presumably that would be the right thing to do, but I bet he doesn't say a word about it.
Well, he should, as you say, for the reasons that you've just articulated and highlighted. He should absolutely sort of say, look, he understands the ruling, he totally gets it. He can try and explain what he was trying to do, which is to look after maybe a vulnerable group of people who, I'd say, genuinely are trans and should be supported. But he recognises and would ask other institutions now to look at that ruling. And as you say, there are, all the while there's been this activist blob that always seem to shout the loudest on social media, that you say that, if you criticise a particular movement, it tends to be on the left wing of politics, that, you get absolutely lampooned for it. But there's a group of women in Scotland that have quietly gone about this case, that have made it absolutely clear that they just want to have it defined in law that their rights as women should be protected when it comes to single-sex spaces, when it comes to the NHS, when it comes to sport, when it comes to education. They haven't shouted from the rooftops. They haven't thrown mud at people. They haven't, slagged anyone off in any particular way. They've just gone about their day-to-day to get this definition for them and millions of women up and down the country. And they have won. And good on them, I say, because it's always and it does tend to be, a left-wing activist mob of people that want to shout from the roof, that go around sort of, desecrating our public buildings, whether it's Just Stop Oil or people like that. It's a far-left mob of people that are the most vocal, the most hateful, it seems to me, without being able to sit around the table and have a genuine conversation and understand that women's rights have been put to one side, it seems to me, in this debate. And that's why it's such a good victory for them today.
I couldn't agree more. And I've been saying for months that and I'm delighted by it, because those women are right. It's about women. It's not anti-trans. And you're absolutely right when you say, we hear very little. We both would know people, women, who protect or argue for, quite rightly, women's rights. But I don't hear them coming out because they're either terrified that they're going to be bashed by the trans lobby, or for some reason they don't understand it. To me, it's very simple. Have a male toilet, a female toilet, have a whatever you'd call the toilet in the middle. But I have teenage daughters, Charlie, and I'm not apologising for not wanting a man in a skirt with a penis in my daughter's changing room. I'm not apologising for that to anybody. But this is not, as you quite rightly said, anti-trans. This is about defining a woman. That was the first story of the day. Very articulately and brilliantly put, I might just say, by you. The other one that's going to wind me right up, or has been winding, I want your opinion of the National Education Union. This is the largest teaching union, who've today called Reform UK far right and racist. They've said that Donald Trump, Nigel Farage is a pound shop Donald Trump. But perhaps most frightening of all, as we enter local elections, and we can't talk about specifics, you know that, they've pledged funds from their party's coffers to oppose reform candidates across the UK. I would have thought on the day that it was announced that they're worried about classroom assistants because it's such a difficult job that they're employing anybody and the safety of children could be at risk here. That was a talk exclusive. What does this say about this union? Why have we got... What are they getting involved like this for? Do they have a... I mean, you could say they would have a right, but we're getting to a frightening point, aren't they?
Totally. It completely undermines their own objectives and their own existence and what they should be there to do. Because if you're a parent today, anywhere across the country, and you have absolutely no interest in politics whatsoever, you might be totally apolitical, you might think, well, they're all a bunch of the same, don't want anything to do with the lot of them. What you want an education union to be doing is either standing up for teachers in the classroom where they might be overloaded with work, or that there might be issues within schools, or the curriculum isn't correct, or that the class sizes are too big. You want the union for teachers to be on the side of teachers, schools, working with parents to get the best deal for your kids' education. Every penny that the union has should be spent on the rights of the workers, the teachers, or getting schools in the best place possible. It should not be spent on any political opposition, as it were, so funding a cause to go against another political opponent is a total waste of money. I think any parent, as I say, that isn't political will think, well, that's a bizarre thing to do. Why on earth are they getting involved in something other than education? I think it just totally undermines their position. And I think it shows the politicisation of some unions, which, again, you just don't allow them to get on and do the job, and they lose public support at the end of it.
God, I'd forgotten how good you are. Can I talk to you before you go on a serious note? Because I know you've got to go at past. I've been talking about the winter of discontent in '79. You're too young. We all said, as this election came upon us, that the Labour Party, whenever they've been in power, have bankrupted the country. And it's quite simply because they're in hock to the unions, who, when Labour get into power, demand huge rises. They give one out, then everybody wants it. Then there's going to be strikes. It's like Birmingham. Sharon Graham, the head of Unite, yesterday saying, I'm going to spread this out. I genuinely believe between now and Christmas there will be shortages of electricity and food, and bins are out and bins won't be collected. That always happens under the Labour Party. I want to talk to you about your leader, Kemi Badenoch. I was doing a bit on a show today about the way she was attacked by the BBC, Charlie State and Nana Mochetti, about she hadn't watched Adolescence. I just want to put to you something that I feel really strongly about, and her performance against the BBC was good. She's losing out. The vocal, loud, approachable approach, if you like, of reform has momentum behind it. 4 MPs. I think many people who were disillusioned with the Tories are even more disillusioned now, because all we ever hear from the Tory party, I'm afraid, is we're just sitting and working out where we went wrong. You and I could have told them where they went wrong about 5 minutes after the election. Doesn't she need to be more vocal, in your opinion, Charlie?
Yes, I do. And I think, even if we're told, well, give it a bit of time, that's coming, I think, and there will be comparisons that have been made between her and Margaret Thatcher, for example, becoming leader of the opposition, and it takes a bit of time to get the policies right. She may come up with the best policies. I've no doubt, actually, the team that's working with her and her, she will have some brilliant, brilliant ideas. But in the political world that we live in now, whether it's all through social media, and media plays a huge part of it, you haven't got the time to just think of the right policies up until an election. People want to know what you're thinking, what you're doing every single day. And that's where maybe she's lacking a little bit. I totally supported her, as you say, that BBC interview. I mean, do you want to be part of the national conversation? Yes, okay, it's probably helpful, but is it going to determine the
But the BBC were telling us she was out of order because she hadn't watched a documentary about what's going on with white whatever it was. The fact of the matter is, it's not a bloody documentary, it's a drama series on Netflix. And she said, if I wanted to know about the NHS, I'm not going to watch Casualty. I'm out there finding. I supported her on that, but I'm incredibly frustrated. Let me put this to you. Not even frustrated, because I turned against the Tories. What's happened? Robert Jenrick is garnering all the headlines. Now, there are people in the Tory party who say, oh, he's only saying that because, he's changed stance. Maybe, just maybe, he's sussed out what people want to hear. I think she will be gone in a year's time if she doesn't get her head out of behind wherever it is and start speaking to people. I really do.
Yeah, and that's the commentary in the on the sidelines. That's chatter amongst Tories, members and the commentariat, and that's not something I think that the team around her will want to just dismiss. And Rob Jenrick, as you're absolutely right, he's out there every day. He's tweeting, he's commenting on national events, on live events, on daily stories. I think a few more shadow cabinet ministers should be doing the same. I mean, what Kemi said is that she's leading a team, and she supports Rob in what he's doing. She doesn't want to comment on everything, but when it comes to the big set pieces, she'll want to get that right. But you're right. When you're looking at the polls, and if people are asking themselves, well, where is Kemi? I voted for Kemi, people might say, because they thought that she was very outspoken.
A bit of a bruiser, to be fair, would take Starmer to task. When the Manchester bombers weren't arrested, Manchester guys that beat up the police, the guy was suspended, the policeman, quite rightly, straight away. We had nothing for months. It took reform to get involved. What I'm trying to say to you is I need her, or I would think people need her, to just be a bit more vocal and to give people the desire to think she's got it, but I don't hear anything. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think, look, the one thing that I would probably say to Kemi, if she was listening, which I'm sure she is just be you. You know, you are that sort of fighter. You were that street talker. You know, don't worry about making mistakes. You know, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Nigel, you know, is a brilliant performer, for example, but he will make mistakes along the way. But because people get to know him, you can forgive people for those mistakes or the slip of the tongue here or whatever. But just go out and do it for you, because, you know, as you know, in the Tory party, you might not have too much time at the top.
It's great. It's seriously great to have you back on, and I mean that. Are you still harbouring political ambitions or not, dear boy?
And I'm enjoying talking to you.
He's so nice. Book him next week. He's legendary. We love him.
And the reason I'm going now is because I'm going to the book launch of Douglas Murray, who I know is a good friend of yours on the show.
Good man. Have a lovely time. Enjoy. Give him my best, and we will get you on very soon. Charlie Rowley, thank you so much indeed. 6:15. We're live across the UK. Talk Drive. Let's head to Stoke-on-Trent. Mike is on Drive. Mike, how you doing, son?
Hi, up, JK. Better than you, I think. Just a very quick point. A while ago, you said you were getting old.
Yes.
You're over 40. You are old.
Oh. Thank you.
Just to clarify. No, this thing about the biological female.
Yes.
Brilliant. 100% brilliant. What annoys me is my 9-year-old granddaughter could have told you the answer to that 5 years ago.
Yeah. And that's the point. How much time has it taken? What has been the cost for something that, you know...
Everybody knows. But, I mean, bouncing around a couple of quick subjects. National Union of Teachers.
Yes.
Reform and all the rest of it. Now, here's a question. You might know the answer. I don't. They say they're going to use union funds to oppose reform in elections.
I have to point out it's not the NUT, it's the National Education Union.
Whichever one it is. They all confuse me. Right? Is that not classed as a political donation?
Don't know. Throw that out. Is it a political donation? I don't know. I want to know whether they check with their members whether they're going to agree to use their funds. We'll find that out. It's a good question. The other thing, my friend?
Very quickly, 705 across the channel.
Yeah.
All in hotels, all with nice phones, X, Y, Z, and all the rest of it. What about our veterans?
Oh, mate, listen, you should listen every day. I couldn't agree with you anymore about everything. It's really good. Thank you. How's Stoke-on-Trent apart from windy by the Britannia Stadium?
What?
The football club in Stoke is at the Britannia Stadium. It blows far harder there in the wind than any other football stadium in the United Kingdom.
I hate to tell you this, Jez.
What?
I hate football with a vengeance.
Get off the line. I'm joking. Thank you for coming on, Mike, on Stoke-on-Trent, 6:20. On the day that the Supreme Court decided that, quite rightly, that a man can't have a penis, has led to huge response from you. We'll do some calls as well. More of your text, 87222. Got Matthew Torbitt, the only Labour advisor allowed on this show because the man speaks common sense. We'll take your calls. Kev is here at 7 o'clock. He's got Sharon Davis on his show tonight, which would be amazing. She has long fought for that thing in sport. A man in a dress with a penis can't be involved in sport. It's not fair to women. It's a big day for Sharon. Kev here from 7. Talk Drive till 7 ahead of that.
I don't care about the welfare of dangerous criminals or terrorists. I care about the protection of prison officers, because these are brave people. They're doing a difficult job, often for not very much money, and we should be putting their safety above those of the criminals every single time. And what's happened in recent years in our prisons is governors have not got a grip, often for fear of political correctness, but also we've seen the courts intervening and dictating how governors should be running their prisons and protecting their officers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. Labour's former advisor and a good man, Matt Torbitt, on the way. Loads of response to this Supreme Court judgment. I've seen stuff online with people saying this is an outrage and all the discourse about transphobia is about to start and you need to have lived with a gender recognition treatment document or whatever. The fact of the matter is this is not about dissing genuine trans people. This is about women, actually, these women in Scotland saying we'd like our rights and the things that matter to us laid down in law. A woman cannot have a penis. Mike says, oh, no, I didn't. Gurdeep says, Jez, this is great news. Finally, even though it's taken 5 years, the definition of what a woman is, biological woman and sex, someone needs to tell Starmer. What about all those who have been sacked because they didn't use the correct pronouns, and that little boy who got expelled for having transphobic views from a primary school despite the fact he was only 3? This should now change the ways schools teach about gender. That transgender. Do you know what? I think it's really interesting, and I think the one thing out of today, apart from how long it's taken, how much it's going to cost, is how the sports body of the FA and the Olympic Committee. You remember all that big debate about that female boxer who, I mean, I never forget seeing the woman she beat in tears, gave up after 45 seconds saying she'd never been hit harder and she was convinced it was a bloke. I don't know. Jez, I could have said what Lord Hodge said in less than a minute. A woman is someone who has a vagina, a womb and can give birth. Oh, God, it's getting quite biological, isn't it, Stephen Beckingham? After a hard day's work, I love nothing... This is T. I don't know what T stands for. After a hard day's work, I love to come home and watch talkTV. More common sense than this bloody government. Hello to Pete, who says, this constant agenda politics has destroyed this country. There's no serious leadership on either side of the house. To get us out of this, the real problems get constantly ignored. It's not what the country wants or needs, but it's all we get. The country is concentrating on the wrong things. I think that is so right. Chris... Charlie even. Cannot believe that in 2025 defining what a woman is having to be debated in court followed by a science check. Look at the chromosomes. And Dave Turner sums up what many of you think. It's a fine day for penises. What a show this afternoon. He's been counting. I've said the word penis over 50 times. Many more penises on the way. Let's go to Hampshire. Jenny, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
Oh, good evening. Yes, what a lovely day. The fact that I've learnt today, I'm 75 and I've actually learnt I'm a woman. Wow.
What is that how you feel?
Not really, because I think it's a load of tosh. Because we've got a stupid government and they don't know what a man or a woman is. I mean, when Starmer came on, before he...
I want to try and ask you to look at the other side, just for a minute, OK? You've come on here and you've said your bit, right? So what do you say to the people who say that this is unfair to the transgender community? Because, I mean, I'm really strong on this, because this is not dissing the transgender community at all. This is not in any way saying that you can't be... This is saying that a woman is a woman. And a man is a man, and safe sex spaces and fairness in sport and all those things, which to me is common sense.
If I go out, I don't want to go into the ladies' loo and find a guy in there. Or if I go into a store and I need to go to a change room, I don't want to find a man in there. I mean, trans have been around for years. I mean, I lived in Singapore for a while, and they were rife out there. It's just it's just fact of life. And I'm talking 50 years ago. So, all of a sudden, this country has gone absolutely just plain stupid, because we have so many stupid people on the left that said, oh, you've got to have trans, they must have this. Just let them get on with their life.
But you see, I don't believe that genuine trans people who have dysphoria, whatever it is, I don't think they this has been hijacked. This is it's like Just Stop Oil. These are disillusioned activists. I don't know who they are, but they hijack stuff. I have as much respect for people as the next person, but too much of our society is now hijacked by ideology, which is fundamentally wrong. Jenny in Hampshire, thank you. Oh, sorry, go on, crack on.
Sorry, yeah, I do think it's, you have male, you have female, you have gays, you have lesbians, you have trans people. Fine. Up until really in the last, 5 years, this has got out of hand. It's always been there. It's been there for centuries. But all of a sudden, because we have this pathetic government, oh, you can't do this and you mustn't say this and you mustn't have that and this child and you're teaching kids, you're brainwashing children in school, which is wrong.
I think that's the most, as a society, that's shameful. I know the argument would be, oh, well, that's your norm, Jez, but we need to teach those. I mean, I've told the story before, and I'm sorry for repeating it. When my daughter had been at a school for 6 months, I was told 32 of them had joined, and within 6 months, 11 of these girls at 13 or 14 were seeing a child psychologist because they were questioning their sexuality. I'm a father of a teenage girl, and I can tell, well, many, and I can tell you categorically that is sheep-like and that is wrong. I am all for genuine cases, but I worry when it's being pushed upon people that it gets followed for the wrong reasons. Listen, great to have you on, Jenny. Thank you so much indeed. 6:30. After this break, the man himself, Matt Torbitt, live and exclusive on Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Housewives' choice. I'm in the car the other day with my wife and 2 children, and a DJ who I used to... Richard Allenson, I won't lie. BBC Radio 2 used to be... Radio 1, actually, and now on some station I've never heard of. Anyway, and I said, good God, he's smooth. And she went, yeah, but not as smooth as Ian Collins. His voice does things to me that you've never done to me, Jez. Brilliant. Anyways, back tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 4. We say a very good afternoon too. And I know that you welcome this man, all of you, the 4 of you listening, because he speaks the truth. Matthew Torbitt, former Labour advisor. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
On crutches?
On crutches. I've cracked my fibula playing football.
What position do you play? Left back in the change room? That was
No, I was a left winger growing up, believe it or not. Funny that. No, I play up front these days. I normally play with some of the MPs and former staffers. And
who do you support?
Stockport, homegrown boy, Stockport fan. I played a little bit at Stockport when I was a kid. Yeah, I played a little bit at Macclesfield, Swindon. Swindon with Paolo Di Canio.
Is that the Stags?
No, Silkman, Macclesfield.
You played for Paolo Di Canio?
I trained with Swindon for a period. This is the thing, I was never quite good enough, but I was,
I know
useful.
that feeling. I know that feeling. I do indeed. Mate, welcome to the show. So I'd really like your take on this because, I mean, this has caused a surge of response. Today, the Supreme Court saying a woman is a woman can't have a penis. We're now... Many people, I suspect millions, are saying it's taken 5 years and millions of pounds for the absolute obvious. This is not, Lord Hodgson, this is not anti-trans. This is these women in Scotland who said, what about our rights in sports? What about our rights in toilets? I have a teenage girl, I will say it until I'm blue in the face, even if I get dragged into this debate. I have nothing against trans people at all. I'm not a transphobe, but here's what I would say. I don't want an Isla Bryson who put on a wig and a skirt to get away with being a male rapist to go to a female prison. I don't want that in a female toilet where my teenage daughter's changing, and I don't think that's transphobic. I think that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say if somebody is going to do that anyway, I don't think they even need the opportunity to dress up as a woman, unfortunately. I think there are a lot of sickos in the world, and if a man is going to go and do something, unfortunately...
Do you think it's been hijacked, this? This is my thing. Do you think these... We talked about Just Stop Oil, but I'm all for women's rights, far more than you would probably ever imagine I am. But what I don't like is the fact that all those people who are about women's rights go very quiet when the trans argument comes out. I think that trans people have rights, but so do women, and so do men. And I think this is quite monumental today. I mean, the trans activists are saying that it's evil and it's put back their community 20 years.
No, so I think... My original thoughts, I didn't have any very strong feelings. I was intrigued to see what happened, and it's a historic day. You know, it's a bit of a landmark day that people will look back on, no doubt. I don't think it's necessarily, you know, there's a lot of people that feel like it's sort of changed the law. This has always been the law, and I was advising MPs up until the general election, and the line we always had is, the Equality Act says, and has always said, that women should be allowed single-sex spaces. That does mean women, and we meant that as in biological women. If certain groups, or whether it be refugees, women's refugees, or anywhere else, is not enacting that, they're breaking the law, and that's always been the case as far as I was concerned. I think it leaves a couple of grey areas, and I don't know what that will mean, is trans people are still allowed to have fair participation in sport. What does that mean, though? Do we have what Sharon Davis has called an open category in sports where...
But that can only be fair.
Possibly, and I think...
This story about the boxing in the Olympics, you saw that?
Yeah, no, I did.
I mean, that was a bloke.
Well, yeah, I don't know the ins and outs particularly. I think you will always get freaks of nature in sport. You know, we had it with Michael Phelps in the swimming, we have it with Ronaldo and Messi in the football.
No, I get that, but you only had to look at the woman who trained for 8 years in tears after literally a minute because she'd never been punched so hard in my life. I mean, to me, that's not fair. Yeah. And the question is, why don't trans people, this is brilliant, why don't they enter male sports? Why don't women who are trying to become... You never see that. So there is...
Very rare.
I think there is a real debate to be had by sports organisations about the NHS, where we had a story once with a bloke who was 70, asked if he was pregnant. I think a lot of this is going to change. What I'd love to talk to you about politically is the Labour Party. Some cynics are saying Starmer's gone on holiday today. This is a man who... I was in the studio when Piers asked him, and he couldn't say a woman... Piers said, can a woman have a penis? Couldn't answer it. He has gone on holiday. I'm not saying he's avoiding it, but the problem is he's going to be faced with dealing with this when he comes back, mostly because not only is he the Prime Minister, but he's a lawyer who has always said that he will uphold the law, because he upholds the ECHR and every single European law. How are he and his front bench going to respond? Because so many of them have said the opposite to what the judgment is.
I would hope, my thought would be we'll respect the ruling, and that's what I thought, whatever people's thoughts. I think if the Supreme Court rules on something, you'd be a hypocrite to go, well, that doesn't fit with my beliefs, so therefore we throw the rule of law out the window, essentially. I thought fair enough. I think you can still say, I would say, that there are women and there are trans women. You know. Yeah, I think so. I think because there are trans women. There are some
aren't. A woman... when you say...
Well, that's the difference. So you cannot be 100% a woman. You can't. It's biological. The Supreme Court has ruled on that.
Right, so you can't be a trans woman then?
Well, you're putting the trans in front of it, so you've gone under a transition to live your life as a woman. Now,
but you're still a man.
Yeah, no, and we can debate whether you're truly a woman if you want. You know what I mean? It's a little bit
my thing in all of it is it gets hijacked by people who have an agenda. And I have interviewed people who are transitioning, and I don't believe for 1 minute, not going to even have the debate with anybody, that those people want this. They just want to get on with their lives. I think this has been hijacked. Let's move on to the other thing. I'm really interested in your response to this, ever since I read this morning. The National Education Union have today called Reform UK far-right and racist. Its leader has dismissed Nigel Farage as a pound shop Donald Trump, and more importantly, and we have to be careful because of these local elections, Hazmat said that the union will pledge funds to oppose Reform's candidates in the elections. Now, the National Education Union, to come out with this today on the day that a Talk exclusive found out that Britain's classrooms are being filled with unqualified teaching assistants who can come from any walk of life, when we know that there is ideology in schools and so many parents are up in arms, should they not be concentrating on protecting their members, making sure the standard of education to our children is better than picking a political fight? I'm not sticking up for Nigel Farage. I would be saying this if they were criticising the Labour government, the Tory opposition, Reform. I wouldn't be criticising them if they were into dissing the Liberal Democrats, because I think Ed Davey is an idiot. But I'm being completely serious. I mean, that's frightening, isn't it?
Members may ask themselves that. I think there are many members in lots of different unions, many in some cases shop stewards, who are voting Reform. I have friends that have gone for interviews with some of the unions, and one of the questions is, what would you do about a member that's voting Reform? You have to remember, a lot of these unions, the NEU, which is one, I believe, are affiliated to the Labour Party.
Yep.
So it isn't a great surprise that, obviously, even if Daniel Kobedi is not a fan of Keir Starmer, which I don't think he is, he's absolutely not going to be a fan of Nigel Farage, because whether you think he's far right or whatever, I think Nigel Farage is an old school Thatcherite, a bit of an opportunist, where you can see where he's very good at having his finger on the pulse of issues such as...
Far more than most of the politicians right now in this country. You'd agree with that?
I can't disagree with that, and that's because maybe he goes out in the country or whatever else, he's got good people around him. He knows that he isn't betraying his sort of Thatcherite beliefs of free market to say, well, I'd nationalise British Steel, or I would let Thames Water go out of business, because he knows people are fed up. And actually, I was astounded. It was on Sue Gray's list that Thames Water would likely go out of business. He had 6 things that would likely come up for a Labour government. Thames Water was on there. Why Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, has not gone, right, people are fed up. They're not getting the service they want. Our waters are polluted with all sorts of excrement. Why don't we bring it in-house? Might be costly, but people will be happy with us. You know, it makes total political sense.
That's what I mean, and I think you talk quite brilliantly about how people are frustrated. And Nigel Farage, whether you're a fan or you're not, has his finger on the pulse of the British public. And when you've got Miliband going on about net zero, and you've got Phillipson going on about, well, I'm going to ask you about her in a minute. We've got Supreme Courts deciding what a woman is. And I think your average, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, your average family, man, woman, if that's okay to say that, are interested in paying their bills, their mortgage, looking after their kids, going to the doctors, making sure granny's all right. And they look at this and they're just like, this is absolute rubbish. This is madness. And they want politicians who, if you like, look and sound like they've got the finger on the pulse. And right now, Kemi Badenoch doesn't sound like that. Keir Starmer doesn't sound like that. Nigel Farage does. So like him or loathe him, I'm not sure that... it's a bit like the church when all the scandals happen. Look inward. Stop passing bleeding judgment, Justin Welby, whatever your name was. Look at what's going on. Oh, lo and behold, a paedophile that you did nothing about, who killed himself, abused loads of kids, and you're pontificating about Rwanda and about homelessness and all that, which might be your remit, but do you want to get your own house in bleeding order first? That's how I've always seen it.
I think it's about messengers, and we are not blessed with very good messengers in front-line politics at the moment, and maybe haven't been. I look back to, I have my bugbears with him, but Tony Blair was an outstanding visionary and somebody that could articulate a vision. Whether you agreed with it, another story, but he had that charisma.
Thatcher. You and I wouldn't agree about both politicians, but they were conviction politicians who had a belief and stuck to it, whether you agreed with it or not.
Thatcher didn't care whether you agreed with it or not. She was doing it, and that was her belief and her political philosophy. At the moment, we with the current government have sort of rehashed Blairism, because I think you need to be radical at the moment. People are crying out for change. They might not always be able to articulate what that is, but you don't have to be left-wing to be radical. Sure Start was radical for its time. The national minimum wage was massively radical. Signing Climate Change Acts in the 90s was radical. The Equality Act that we're talking about still today, totally radical for its time. At the moment, we have a government that is sort of putting all its eggs in the basket of AI, which people don't really get, if we're totally honest. Joe Bloggs doesn't really understand. He's worried about whether his job's going to be... No, me too. Whereas Nigel Farage, I think politics is in a large part as well about acting. And I think what you can always tell by Keir, and I hate to dig him out sometimes, but they make it easy, is he looks terrified all the time because he's not telling the truth. He isn't saying, oh, no, not telling the truth. You're right. He's not saying what he believes. He's saying what he thinks he's got to say to get through to the next day.
But that's the whole basis of politicians who base what they say on focus groups and what response their PR people tell them. You're right. So let me give you this from Stephen Bromsgrove. Jez, the thing that makes me smile is that today, with this decision, it's taken 5 years and 5 judges for the UK to have a law that recognises a man and a woman. It took Donald Trump 2 days and an executive order from a father of 3 brilliant daughters with the best woman ever. You can love or loathe Donald Trump, right? As you can love and loathe Tony Blair or Margaret Thatcher. But they stood in front of their electorate and said, this is what I stand for, and if I get elected, I'm going to do it. All of our politicians today, I've heard nothing from Badenoch. I've said my piece about her. And maybe Nigel and Reform will get near power and maybe they'll be the same. But people in this country are crying out for vision, conviction, change, and somebody to go, yeah, I get it. You're not being racist because you can't understand why this country is being filled with people who are taking the public services that you've paid for. If you're a veteran that you've given 15 years and you're thrown aside, if you're a pensioner and your house is cold, if you're a farmer and you feel like your land's being grabbed, these people, and I agree with you, it doesn't matter what politician you are. They're not going to listen to Ed Davey jumping off an abseil. They're not going to listen to Keir Starmer, who is, yeah, I'm the same as you, who, you're absolutely right, you're so right with it, you know, so terrified to say the wrong thing. I would love a politician to stand in this country, I said it the other week, and go, right, this is me and I'm standing for election. I've been divorced twice, I've made this mistake, I've done that, people will write stuff, I'm being honest with you. This is what I believe, and if you vote for me, we will do this. There will be good days and bad days, I'll have good people around me, and I'll tell you when it's good and I'll tell you when it's bad, but I ain't moving until we get to the end. And if we get to the end and it's worse, you can dump me, and if it's better, you can re-elect me. Wouldn't that be bloody refreshing? It doesn't happen.
No, it'd be nice, and it reminds me of something similar. If I was to paraphrase one of my political heroes, Tony Benn, he always said the Labour Party should stay a party of the left. If you move to the centre, you have 2 parties in the centre, so one of you isn't telling the truth. And
precisely what the uniparty argument is.
And
that's exactly why Reform are doing great as well.
And when you talk about the focus groups, the Labour Party at the moment has a very broad but shallow base, looking at the votes of the last general election. So, and actually, leading back into the trans argument, the reason why Keir and others probably couldn't answer the question is they're trying to please everybody. And you can't. People vote for differences. That's why you see a rise in Reform. Nigel is a good actor. I don't think he's a workers' champion. I think his voting record shows that. I think he masquerades and acts very well as one, though. But
with respect, that was easy because the Labour Party has always been, and you would agree with this, the party of the workers. The working people of the north of England don't see Keir Starmer as a man of the people at all, do they?
Well, I think you lose it a little bit when you talk about, you know, your dad being a toolmaker and whatever. I will add that the most relatable thing he said was that it might have been a private thing once. He said about how his dad never felt good enough, and it reminded me of my mum being a cleaner and no one ever saying good morning, and it made me a bit emotional because I thought, yeah, that's right. And I think when he talks about his family, he seems that bit more passionate. He's bothered, he cares, he means it. But we have people more bothered about trying to get in power on the back of nothing they believe in, rather than going, this is what I believe in, I fancy my chances. I'll go and debate with anyone on the street today. I might be wrong on some stuff, but I'll tell you what I think I believe in. And you can either vote for me on the back of that if I was standing, or you don't. And ultimately, that's what 2019 taught me. I thought Jeremy was a terrible messenger sometimes, but I thought these politics are my politics and I'm absolutely going to stand on them. We got absolutely battered, and I thought, well, that's my politics dead for 40 40 years then, isn't it? You've got to try and move then and see what victories you can get.
You're a good man. Can I just ask you quickly, I was talking about the last time you lot were in power. I remember the winter of discontent, green goddesses, rubbish on the streets. What's happening in Birmingham is quite frightening. And although the leader of the Labour Council, I saw an interview today, said there aren't rats, there are. There's 3 million bins that haven't been collected. Unite finances the Labour Party. The leader of Unite, Sharon Graham, yesterday said, we're going to spread this out. I genuinely believe, and it goes with what you said, if you come to power, as he did, by saying, I want to make my tent as broad as possible. When you end up in number 10, you're trying to appease all the people all the time. And there is history that says, and this is not bigging up the Tories, they made an absolute catastrophic mess in the last 14 years. But the minute you start giving unions pay rises and then you don't give the others, you end up in trouble. And I genuinely believe, as many people do on the right, that we are heading for that discontent, be it summer or winter, that the unions will not be able to get the rises that they want because there isn't the money in the coffers, and will go on strike, be it train drivers, bus drivers, ambulance drivers, rubbish collectors, and that is, if you like, testament to many of us who have said this is what's going to happen. That's what many people think. What are your thoughts on that?
I think politics, and it tends to show that history repeats itself. And if you go back to the winter of discontent in '79, what happened was Harold Wilson and James Callaghan were giving out 15% inflation-busting pay rises, and what happened was everyone went on strike anyway because they went, well, we'll have more now, then actually we'll have even more.
It's true.
Sharon Graham is no fan of Keir Starmer and vice versa. She's probably punishing him for freezing her out at Labour conference to not talk about the winter fuel allowance cuts, which she wanted to do on stage, and they kept her till basically the lights went out. I also think it's interesting, Sharon Graham said she wanted to move away from the politics and she thought Len McCluskey had led them the wrong way, basically. We should get back to winning things for our members. They ain't getting there at the minute because the whole dispute in Birmingham is because they're going to scrap the idea of a bin man, essentially, to put it in non-technical terms, because they're worried about equal pay for equal value of work, which for me is ridiculous. You're basically saying a cleaner should get paid the same as a teacher or this sort of stuff. And this stuff has been fought on, but it causes nightmares because you can go, well, I think I work as hard as that person, so I want to be on 40 grand a year as well, actually. And what Unite want is a 25 grand payout, and Birmingham say that'll bankrupt us. And they're going, well,
they're bankrupt anyway.
And that's the problem. So I think, really, you need to deploy Angela Rayner to have a little word and, you know, have a... Because she's the union's darling.
In a hard hat. I could talk to you till the cows come home. You're our favourite former Labour advisor. I hope the leg gets better.
Thank you. Fingers
Keep it up, as they say. Thank you very much indeed. Matthew Torbitt, 10 to 7. Kev is here at 7. Great news so far. He hasn't walked in and said, are we live on radio today? It's all going very well. Back in a minute.
And we know from J.D. Vance and others the view of Europe that's held in the White House at the moment, and I think stand fast the UK. I think Trump's view of Europe is pretty dim as well. But to allow it to influence his thinking in such an important thing of war and peace in Europe, it is pretty shocking. And I suppose the final thing here, Julia, as you've alluded to, he is trying to do a deal. Unfortunately, deals in real estate are different from deals in peace and war.
Who knew?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just Sky breaking news. California state is planning to sue the President Trump to stop tariffs. Yeah, California, like you haven't got enough problems to deal with. There we go. 7 minutes to 7 minutes away from the legend that is Kev O'Sullivan. Kevin Gates said, thank you for your comments. Thank you to Pete, also to Mary. A couple of phone calls to finish. Let's go to Exeter. No, why can't I read? Essex, you absolute whatever. Grant, good evening, sir. You're on Talk Drive. How are you?
Yeah, hello, Jeremy. Just a few comments on the trans issue. Most people don't care about the trans issue. What they care about is men in women's changing rooms and men in women's sports. It's also, you've got people that use it as an excuse to do the wrong thing. So once those things get sorted out, nobody cares really about gays, lesbians, trans. Nobody cares as long as it doesn't affect the obvious things that ain't right. So,
and I think that, do you know what? I think that's a really, really perfect way of describing it. I think what happens is, on the basis of today, the trans lobby have jumped up, activists have jumped up and said, you're all transphobic. No. Trans people have an absolute right to do what they want to do. But this is about women. And women said, we do not feel safe. Women. So for all those activists, this is about women. And as a father of a teenage girl, I get it. That doesn't mean I'm disrespecting trans people in any which way. Exactly. Whereabouts in Essex?
Brentwood.
Nice. Posh there.
Yeah, you're right, though, Jeremy. Most people don't care, and it's the women I feel for. They don't feel safe, and that is the bottom line, exactly what you said. And I'm just so glad that the court's done that today, but we'll see where it goes and if it makes much difference.
Good man. Which football team do you support?
Arsenal.
Good luck tonight against Real Madrid. Do you honestly think that they can hold on in the Bernabeu?
I don't know. First goal, whatever the first goal. If it's early, maybe not. So we'll see. But
I'm disappointed by your lack of loyalty. If you're in Essex, you should be supporting the mighty West Ham, shouldn't you?
I was born 2 miles from Highbury, so that's my excuse.
Well, that's unfortunate. Thank you very much indeed, Danny in Brentwood, or even Grant. Let's go to Cumbria, a beautiful part of the country. Miranda, a very good evening. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining. What would you like to say?
I was just, well, it was about Alice Cooper, basically. I'm not quite sure why 5 judges took 5 years and all that money to decide what a woman is. All they had to do was listen to Alice Cooper, because he said years ago that only women bleed. And that's basically all I wanted to say.
Right, OK. Well, thanks for that. On a serious note, thank you. On a serious note, obviously you're a woman. Do you think, I think it's really important to make the point before we finish, that this decision is not anti-trans people. This is pro-women, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. But I am quite sure that we have to, as women, we have to remain vigilant, because I think there are some lawyers out there who are quite devious, and they will try and undermine what these Supreme Court judges have said. And with regards to sport, I used to run, and I wouldn't have been able to comprehend 40 years ago having to run against a boy in my 800 metres.
And the point about sport is, and Sharon Davis will be with Kev after 7, is that, it is a proven fact that if a man is changing to a woman physically, he's going to be at a greater level. And let's make it not about trans athletes. Let's make it about the female athletes or sports people who have trained for years and are being knocked out, quite literally Olympic boxing, by patently a man who might be transitioning to a woman, but it's an unfair advantage. And yet again, I don't hear from those women. The women who talk about women's rights are not talking about women's rights in that instance, and that's what I find really disappointing. Do you know what I mean?
No, it is. I mean, I used to train with boys, with lads, because that made me run faster.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. That's the fact. It's just a fact of life, basically. And I'm not frightened of transgender athletes. It's just the fact that or women. It's just the fact that it's unfair.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that and your opening gambit, which I thought was right, is how does it take 5 years and millions of pounds for what most people would say is common sense?
Absolutely.
What part of lovely Cumbria?
Near Ulverston.
Lovely. Thanks for me. How long have you been listening to talk?
Oh, probably about 2 years now.
Got any friends?
Sorry?
Got any friends?
Yes, I have, and I tell everybody. And it's wonderful waking up at 6:30 listening to Mike Graham, and then it's wonderful listening to you.
Oh, you're very kind, sweetheart. Thank you very much indeed. It's great to have you on. Miranda in Cumbria, Mike Graham, mentioned there, the legend that is. Of course, back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Morning Glory. It's got its finger on the pulse of what's happening in this country. So has this station. Now, we're going to try and do something normal. Kevin O'Sullivan is walking into the studio. We're live to the nation, Kev.
Thank you.
Yes, Kev's here. Here he is. He's trying to work out now where to put his microphone. Hello to John. My brother was a bus maintenance engineer during COVID when Khan paid the bus drivers bonuses for their service. The mechanics got sweeter pay, but they were probably more at risk because they were working where the passengers sat. No PP or anything. Massively important day.
Yeah, I could see that our audience, I've been looking at your progress, and our audience are really engaged with this historic day.
It is historic. And this is not anti-trans people.
No.
This is about women. And all those women's rights, Kev, I've been saying it, who stick up quite rightly for women's rights, you don't hear from them in this instance at all.
Yeah, it's anti-trans extremists.
Yes.
That's what it